Hello everyone and welcome to the Community Spotlight. We are here with the 5th tutorial of our tutorial series for Speed Seasons. Doesn't feel like we're that through far Speed Seasons, but we're over halfway through. If you're interested, real quick, in GQ announcements, SGQ 2021 Online volunteer submissions have closed, but our sort of off-site volunteer positions, it's a weird title to use given that everything's off-site these days. But people who want to help out with chat moderation and social media volunteering, those applications for SGDQ 2021 Online will be opening at a later date. Keep your eye open on gamesdonequick.com to see more information about that once it's announced. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube and you'd like to support our content while it's live, just head on over to our Twitch. It's over at twitch.tv/GDQ. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you can of course subscribe to any Twitch channel of your choice every month for free. We'd appreciate it if you would consider subscribing, as Hotfix is funded in part thanks to your subscriptions and bits. And of course, you can find more information about Hotfix, all of our upcoming shows, what our shows are, and all of that stuff over at gamesdonequick.com/hotfix. There's also a form on the bottom left of that page where you can submit a run that you think would be a good fit to have on Hotfix, just an open submission form. If you've got a game that you think would be good to have on one of our shows, just fill out that form and maybe we'll get back to you about it. But we've got Alpha 5 here who helps basically run Speed Seasons all by himself, and OmniGamer who's going to give us a tutorial. Alpha, why don't you give us the quick rundown on what Speed Seasons is?
How do I help run it by myself?
I don't know, man.
Anyway, so yeah, as Rilkin said, I run Speed Seasons all by myself. Speed Seasons is it's a get yourself speed running tournament. Basically, I announce a game. Nobody has any idea what it is. And then, we give you a tutorial, and we give you 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks to learn the game and learn the race, or learn the route, anything you want to do with it. And then, at the end of that, we do a big race of the game. And you earn points based on your position in that race, or a Steam game provided by me if you actually manage to win that race. And if you get enough points, you qualify for a top 8 bracket. There are more prizes there provided by me. It's all on speedseasons.com if you want to check out all of that information. But yeah, the whole thing is about just playing video games, enjoying them, maybe trying out something new. If you haven't ever speedrun anything before, it's a 2-week commitment. You dabble in it and I'll just keep going with it, see how they do and whatnot, because the races are open to anybody of any want of commitment to the tournament. You don't have to really participate much. It's just open. The points are there on the side, and it's an excuse to play a video game. So yeah, that's basically what the whole thing is.
And the race for this one for Skyblazer is going to be on May 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to participate in that one, you just have just about 2 weeks to practice up for that. And OmniGamer, why don't you say hello to everyone? How you doing today?
Hello everybody, OmniGamer here, and pretty soon we'll get into some Skyblazer learning. Was there anything else that we needed to announce or go over before getting into the details?
Probably just remind people to tune in tomorrow. Time Capsule's got Super Mario Galaxy. That'll be fun. Starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. But I think we're good on Speed Seasons unless there's anything else Alpha wants to tack on.
No, just the race will be on May 9th. Just make sure to call your mother before joining it. But yeah, we'll OmniGamer take it away.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's talk some Skyblazer. And if you were able to catch the run that I did yesterday, I kind of went over some of the broad techniques and things that are part of the run. There's actually a lot of nuance, and every stage kind of has its own little different pieces. So we're going to take our time as we go through and just learn a little bit about how to do some of these advanced maneuvers, cover some of the strategies for getting through different rooms, as well as kind of alternate strategies that maybe you give up a little bit of time, but they'll be much more consistent. I'm in emulator today, and there'll be a couple reasons for that, but for the most part, we're going to spend quite a bit of time in just this first area, because this is where we get to learn about all of the basic things. And they actually set up this stage pretty well for kind of describing those. But this is just a Super Nintendo era platform platformer game. So you've got your run and jump. It's all fine and dandy. You can climb on walls, unlike Mega Man X games where you can cling and you'll slide down the wall a little bit. You actually have perfect control over going up and down. You can kind of spider along. What is a little bit different than a lot of what you might be familiar with, though, is kind of the way that the momentum works. So if you're playing, let's say, Super Mario World, you can be running forward, you jump, and you can kind of adjust your position in midair, and basically that's still the same momentum. Like whatever momentum you had when you jumped, it kind of stays up while you're in the air, and you can kind of pull back on it, change around your P-speed and all the rest of that. It doesn't work here. And the reason is that momentum, as far as the game concerned, is only held when you're on the ground. So there's a number of things you can do when you're just like running forward like this. If you were to jump, notice at the end, you still basically kind of move forward a little bit. And that is important for kind of getting precise positioning, especially there's some narrow platforms that we're going to run into later. In the same way, if you're just running along and you punch, that punch itself will stop you momentarily, but as soon as the punch animation is done, your momentum will keep up. And if you're not familiar with it or you haven't given enough time to this game, that can kind of give it like an icy physics sort of feel. So spend a little bit of time, get familiar with just kind of moving around, know how your momentum when you start will carry you through even after you land without pressing any directions. There are some things that you can do that'll cut down on that. Crouching is one of them if you just want to prevent yourself from falling off the ledge. If you wanted to go through and make sure that you wanted to basically pause in place for a moment, you can just do punch, or you can jump and then let it carry through afterwards. But that's one of the key things, is just understanding how you can do that when you get there. So as far as attacks go, you'll be using this all the time to take out enemies. You've got a ground-based punch-punch-kick combo. Each punch does 1 damage, the kick at the end does 2. Most enemies will have 1 or 2 health, so that's fine, but you are completely frozen every time that you will punch or do the kick combo. So instead, you probably want to be in the air, where you can do this flash kick, and that does 2 damage. So you get to keep moving. There's a very, very minor penalty. Every time that you land on the ground, you're frozen for a frame. Doesn't really matter at the scale of human performance limits, but that's just one thing to consider. Another form of attack that you have, right now we only have the crescent, but your special magic abilities. And each of these will do approximately 4 damage. There are some caveats there, but assume that it'll do 4 damage, which is more than any of the rest of your attacks. So pretty easy to keep up on, and just finding the right place and opportunities to use them is going to be pretty important. So now let's get into some of the little bit more advanced movement techniques. And I'm spending a lot of time just in this first stage because it's fairly easy. There's a lot of reasonable places to set up, and it's important to go over the rules, because I mentioned that there's zips, there's all sorts of clips and things like that, but there's some pretty rigid rules about what you can do. It's not like you can just get yourself stuck and immediately go everywhere you want in the stage. The rules of zipping in this game is that you can, for the most part, only go left or up. And it's a Super Nintendo era platformer. You're probably going to be going right 99% of the time. So that kind of limits some of the usefulness there. Up is another story, and there's plenty of opportunities for that, but it still has a number of times where this will come in handy. The question, though, is how do you actually get started on this? Every single zip every single zip in the game starts from a clip, which means that you get some part of your body stuck in either the floor or the wall, and there's a couple different ways to do that. Most of it operates from the fact that when you punch and you jump during that ground punch, so this is just crouching and punching. If you note here, we're going to do the punch. On the jump input, you can see how your legs are kind of stuck in the ground. That is basically time enough where you're set up for a clip. And then so long as you have the inputs right, you can do a zip. The timing on the zip is pretty precise, but for just visualizing this better, let's turn on some hitboxes. So as we go from this, you've got the punch, and so long as you're in this animation, if you jump, you see how the hitbox suddenly extends lower. During this time, you count as kind of in the ground, and the game really doesn't want you there. It wants you to get out as best as it can, and its first inclinations for that are either to push you up, or if it can't push you up, it's going to push you left. So at this point, if you were to punch, and you're going to, let's say, hold forward and B. One. So you see how I suddenly shifted back like that. The way that you do that is simply by doing that jump, but you also give it a direction. So in this case, it's whatever direction you're facing. I pressed forward from the punch. You do the jump, you press forward once, and you immediately shift to the left. If you do it the other direction, so punch, jump, press to the left, you shift slightly to the right. That's the only time that you can really go right in these zips, and it's just for a very tiny amount, but it's enough to do interesting things like get yourself stuck in the wall. So now, stuck in the wall is an entirely different set of things that you can do. You can't jump because you're kind of stuck, but with the right timing, you can zip straight up. And the only way that you are able to set this up is if you're in a standing position, you jump, and then 2 frames later, you press attack. And this will launch you up, because that's how the game works. I can't really explain it any better than that. It is a frame-perfect action, so anytime that you pull this off, there's only 1 frame where pressing that Y button to attack is going to get this effect. But as you could see, failing it doesn't really have a penalty beyond just you need to do it again. Like really good runners will be able to get first-time zips like 90% of the time, but for everybody else, you don't really lose a whole lot of time if you just want to try to mash that out, so long as you're set up in the clip in the first place. So that is what happens if you're stuck in the wall, and like I said, in a standing position. There's some other different things that can happen based on this, and they involve basically grabbing onto the wall such that your foot is below the floor. So instead of just trying to zip into it, we're actually going to try and do the same thing. We're going to set it up with the crouching punch and then jump, but immediately hold right so that you grab onto the wall at the lowest possible point. And you'll know that you do this right if your foot is slightly below the wall there. And when you're in this state, some really interesting things happen. If you jump, you'll just go into a standing position. But if you just punch, you fly to the left. Because why not?
When you're still grabbing the wall.
You're still grabbing the wall, and you can continue to punch so long as you've got places to go. Unfortunately, again, there's not all that many opportunities to go left. There's a couple key ones that are awesome, honestly a lot of fun, but we'll go into that later on, just as a matter of course. There's some other physics with grabbing the wall facing this direction, because it doesn't... You can't get the magic flying punch the same way as you do grabbing the wall from this position, but there's some other things that you need to be able to do for that. One last thing, and this is, I'm just going to cover this as something that you can do, especially for our racers. I do not recommend putting a lot of time into trying to learn this, because it's among the hardest things that you can actually do in the game, and only has a couple of uses that save relatively few seconds. But so this whole point of you can get yourself stuck in the ground here and zip very minor amounts, if you get another frame perfect input on top of that, you can do what's called a ground zip. So in this case, we're going to do the punch. I'm holding down right now. So we're going to jump, wait 1 frame, and then execute the crescent. And that basically keeps us locked vertically. So the game has nothing else to do to try and push us up. So instead shoves us left. And this is extremely difficult to do, especially on the fly. But with enough practice, it is possible. I just don't recommend putting a lot of time into practice it, because there's way better uses of your time as far as just learning different things and how you can make the best use of them.
And because of the magic routing, there's only like a limited number of tries on that in an individual stage, right?
Right, and especially with the routing, the most optimal route assumes that you don't miss it at all. So you'd get it, there's 2 specific points where it can save a reasonable amount of time, and if you mess it up and need to do it again, you don't have enough magic to do what comes after. So definitely do not recommend trying that if you aren't confident or don't have a sufficient backup strat. But yeah, that's general movement. That's kind of the basics of zipping. We'll cover zipping again in a little bit, I'm sure. But for now, let's talk about the rest of the stage. So, this is just intro stage. You don't really have any great abilities to do anything, so it is kind of a hold right affair, but there's a couple opportunities to do different things. So right there, I just took a damage boost off of one of these little mage guys going around. And at the end of this stage, before you head into the doorway, you want to have 3 damage boosts. It doesn't really matter where you take them, but you just need 3. The way that I'm doing it in particular, you see I turn around right before I get hit, because the way that you get moved from getting hit is dependent just on where you're looking. So you want to be facing the way that you ultimately want to go. So before you get hit, it's always just go forward, let your momentum carry you, because you still do have some momentum that'll keep moving you into the enemies, even if you turn around, and you let them also walk into you when they have the opportunity. So the 3 places that I like to get these damage boosts, this guy right here, skip through these guys, this guy, and then 1 more at the top, and there you go. You're down to 1 HP. You just continue through and head on into the exit. And just to show that one more time, precision is not really a major thing for this stage. Just kind of go with the flow. Any mistakes here aren't really going to cost you, unless, for example, you happen to get a health pickup as a drop from one of these guys. But just heading on through, making sure that you're keeping up with all that will ensure that when you get to this cutscene, you need to get knocked out. There you go, just 1 and done. Text, and there's a lot of it right now. You can advance text so long as it reaches the end of the lines by hitting any of the face buttons. So really the best way to go through is to just mash every button. And so you see the input display in the corner kind of going crazy. That's really all you need to do. It's about as effective, if not more effective, than if you were trying to even just mash on 1 button at 10 to 12 hertz to have all of these different buttons going. So you can let that all work by itself. So Old Man there just gave us 1 extra health point. Moving on to Faltine's Woods. And this is another stage where it largely does come down to just kind of holding right. There's a couple different paths that you can take, though, that have different amounts of threat to them. I'm going to show off first the upper path, which is just generally you kind of move your way up through the treetops. One thing to note is just, this is more a point of trivia than anything else. So you see this ledge right here. There's a magic jump that you can do here, probably right about here, where if you jump at just the right time, you'll clear basically colliding with the left edge of that whole peak, and then you should be able to clear on the other side. But if you land, you're frozen for a frame. That just costs 1 frame of movement. But it's a frame-perfect jump to save 1 frame. So certainly not something that you need to go for or to really stress yourself out about. I don't, but it's one of those things that's free to try. So if you can get consistent timing on that, you can get the smallest of time benefits and just work through it from there. So I'm talking over just that's the upper path trajectory, is just after you get into these first couple trees, killing the enemies along the way, you kind of keep going up, and then clear that. And overall, that path kind of has the most opportunities to reduce lag. But the older route, which is honestly just as fast, is to kind of take the lower side of things, but you have a couple more enemies in your way. You're more likely to miss an input. Oh, excuse me. It's basically, instead of going up that one tree at the very end, you kind of work your way down and just clear out a couple more enemies that you encounter along the way.
So how does the physics on the trees work? Is it just sort of like slime, you sink into it slowly unless you jump?
It is kind of like just a sinking. It doesn't actually affect your movement speed. It's simply you will continually drop for as long as you are in a tree. And if you reach the bottom, you fall out.
Okay.
And that lower route is, like I said, just a little bit more treacherous. There's more enemies kind of along the way, and you can't just jump over a lot of them for free. And just demonstrate one more time. Let yourself fall. Take out that enemy. I'm leaving the hitboxes on for now, just because it can be kind of a mess to figure out where the enemies are. Obviously, you wouldn't have those when you're actually going through normally. And yeah, but that's Faltine's Woods. I'm going to show one more time with the upper path, one last time. Just for the most part, it should be pretty consistent. There are some minor opportunities for danger. Just if you happen to be at the wrong height after some of these jumps, it's possible to like slip through the trees and fall into a pit. You obviously don't want that, but it's not something that happens too often. Okay, so
you also said the magic Super Nintendo words of lag reduction. Is that just killing enemies that are in your way? That don't
not
cost
necessarily.
time, or...
Some of it, especially with that stage, you have all of the trees. They're doing some kind of transparency effects with them. Basically, the more tree material and enemies that are on screen at once, the more it's kind of calculating how all that has to go in. And just the more things on the screen at once with that effect tends to be a little slower. But we're talking a very small handful of frames, probably 10 to 12 at most, if you're going through in like a bad way. So it's not too terrible, just so long as you have something consistent that will get you through. All right. So Temple and Furnace, this is where we start to get into these more advanced opportunities. So there's going to be a lot of damage boosts, some fairly tight just jumps. The very first one is just taking the damage from this flame and then using it to get through the crocodiles. Lovely fire-breathing crocodiles. And then the jump over that second crocodile is just a plain clear. So you have to pause a little bit to make sure that your momentum doesn't happen to carry you into him, and just take the jump over. The old way of doing this is simply to go through and use a crescent on them. And you can do this if you're feeling less confident about any of those jumps. It is slower, just because the crescent will freeze you there, but we're talking like half a second to a second worth of loss just from doing that. But either way, like, neither of these strats are particularly difficult. It's just a matter of getting used to the timing and then carrying it through. One more time. Do the turnaround to get the damage boost. Take your iframes through. You do have to make sure that you go far enough into this platform so that you connect with that fireball with your kick. You can see on the hitbox of the kick, like, it is pretty generous, both above and below your own hitbox. But if you land, the hitbox disappears and you get your full height again. So you just need to make sure that you're connecting with the ground fireballs in reasonable enough way. And it doesn't hurt if you need to pause a little bit just to ensure that you're not going to run into them. Getting hit is generally worse than just taking a little bit of a breather and waiting it out. The second room is kind of more of the same. We have another damage boost coming up. This one's a little harder to get the right positioning for, because you still want to get far enough in so that you collide with this particular fireball. Use that to clear the first few steps into that flame, and that should line you up perfectly to land on this and head up into the secret area. So just to show that again, clear that guy, jump over, make sure it's a real high jump, hold it as long as you can, jump in there, land on that platform, and then you can crouch to go right into this. And that clears the room. It does take a little bit of practice just to get that going pretty well. Another thing you can do is still just rely on your crescents, and if you time that right, you should be able to jump from that green platform over here, in which case this would be in a slightly later cycle, but you still are able to jump up here all the same. So if you're not confident about getting these damage boosts follow through, definitely feel free to just toss in a crescent wherever needed. But that's about as optimal as you can make that. All right. And then this is the first room where you experience your zips. And I delayed a little bit talking about what happens when you connect up with your feet inside the floor on a wall where you're facing this way. And there are different properties here than if you're facing to the left. If you remember before, let's wait for this guy to go. When we got stuck, well, when I'm better at getting myself stuck. Oh dear. There we go. Switching all these, getting used to emulator again after practicing on console kind of messes you up with that, but I promise it's not too bad. And if you really need to work out something, you can just continually hold down left or down right when you're next to a wall, jump, and so long as by the time the jump registers, you're holding only to the left or to the right, you'll be able to get in. But in any case, so we're stuck in the wall, stuck in the floor, I guess now, holding onto the wall, and you can see punching doesn't really help us. You still can fly to the left, but this involves doing another... You actually have multiple frames to do this one, but you need to jump and then immediately cast magic. So in this case, we're going to jump and immediately cast a crescent, which should launch us to the left, like so. And you notice here, I'm still stuck in the wall. I've suddenly switched sides, but I'm kind of all the way over at the left. So again, the game wants to either push me left or push me up. I can't really go any further left, but what happens is if I were to punch and then jump before the punch executes fully, so punch, jump, you just fly straight up. So that one's really easy. You don't even need to time that one correctly. Just so long as you do the jump sometime during the duration of the punch, you're good. So that's how that would look. Remember those ground zips that I brought up before? If you're feeling particularly ballsy, you can go through and try to do one right at the entrance, and that'll take you all the way over in the same way, saving a couple extra seconds from the setup. But again, if you miss it, then you're not going to have enough magic for the follow-on. Some other things to note. This is a more precarious zip setup than the others, simply because when you're in this position, you have two good frames, where if you... I'll just show this off here. So if you were to jump and immediately hit X, it works just fine. So that's jump, and then the frame after you'd hit X to use the magic, it works just fine. If you jump, wait a frame, and then hit X, it still works. So you have a 2-frame window for that. But if you jump, wait 2 frames, and press it, What happens is you're going to fly up, which is not what you want, and it's also going to kill you because it's going to drop you off inside of this enemy, and the game doesn't quite know how to do that, so it just bonks you out. Not the best. You can still work on it, but don't recommend it. So 2 frames is much more lenient than a lot of the tricks in this game, so try to rely on that one where available. There are other times too where getting that mess up will kill you, so just be aware of that. Anyways, assuming that you get that and zoom on up the elevator, we're on to first real boss. So this is the lamp, and the best strats on this guy are fairly tricky. They don't look that way. They seem pretty straightforward. You just head on into a good position, and then you start launching crescents. And so long as you've got good rhythm, there you go. Easy peasy. But that's kind of the key thing. You need the good rhythm. And a lot of this has to do with positioning. And I'm going to demonstrate without actually hitting him here. So I'm just going to mash on the special button. So I'm going to fire the magic basically as fast as I can from where I am right now. And just keep an eye on how fast I'm able to do that. So there's a pretty good duration. But if I instead move closer in, you get a much faster cadence simply because your prior magic shot is disappearing sooner. And because of that kind of difference of just when the shot disappears for you to fire the next one, that changes up how often you're able to shoot out one and make sure that it overlaps the hitbox with the lamp here. And if you drop even one of them, the lamp's going to go into another invulnerability cycle, and you just have to set it up again. And it's kind of, you don't want to waste that time if you can help it. So first things that I like to do, kind of wander up. I make sure, I can't do a demonstration, but you see kind of where the knee is aligned. I'm just going to turn off hitboxes briefly. You see right where the knee is aligned with the kind of the green candle of the lamp. That's where you want to be, at least as far as my my setup. And from there, you wait for the genie to toss out the fireballs. I don't need to do any extra movement. For whatever reason, like this punch, you see how it has such a large hitbox above me. It'll take out both of those fireballs, no problem, and it'll actually give you gems for it. But the gems are irrelevant. It's simply getting them off the screen and away from you is all you need to remove the threat. And just so long as you have a hitbox out there to take on the lamp as it comes through, there we go. So this is not as easy as I'm kind of making it look, and a lot of you will have kind of a difficulty finding the correct positioning and timing for setting this up, but just keep at it. And it doesn't feel good to drop a cycle and to let the genie go into another invulnerability phase, but it's also not the end of the world. We're talking another 5 or 6 seconds loss. And if you're in a race or anything else like that, there's still plenty of opportunities to make up that time in other segments. So don't be too worried about it. And really the best I can say is just get into a situation like this, whether it's an emulator or if you have any kind of save state pack for console. Get in there, try it out, keep practicing it until you feel like you can get it pretty consistently. There is one other thing that I want to go over while we're in this screen, though, and it has to do with your positioning when you end fights. And this is something that was found out, let's say 4 years ago, where the time that you spend in the little cutscene afterwards, where it shows you getting a new ability, changes depending on where you are in the screen. And I'll give you a practical example of that in just a minute. So let's set up here. Okay, so we got into another cycle there. So right now, See how I'm kind of further over in the lower right corner. I'm gonna wait for the screen to go black. Okay, just see how long that this takes before the screen goes blank. So I stop motion there from the comet. I'm not sure what audio is going out to the stream right now, but there's a little jingle that plays, and there might be some silence afterwards. And now, instead, if I stay right here, there's a little jingle that plays, and then it kind of immediately cuts out. Whereas here, remember, it moves you all the way over to that middle part, and from the time that it takes you to actually move all the way over there, it extends out the duration that needs to play. So you always want to end a boss encounter in the middle of the screen or as close as you can. So yeah, you're going to want to make sure that anytime that you can get just a little bit more of a jump towards the center of whatever room you're in, you'll save up to even 2 seconds if you're in a really bad position. Like in this area, you see how long it takes you to move you to the center. It still has to wait out that full jingle sequence starting from the time that it plays out the animation. So keep that in mind every opportunity you get.
So quick question about that boss. You mentioned that that's your setup. Is that one of those things where like just sort of if there's a different setup you find, like different runners might do that in different ways sort of thing?
Yeah, I'm not aware of too many other ones. For the most part, it's just I like to find my own alignment with background. So you can find your own one that works out pretty well as far as like your, for example, your own mashing ability might change up the cadence for that the special spawns with. So there's a lot that you can do just to kind of figure out what works best, and the right answer is whatever you can get through most consistently with is the best that I can say there. But yeah, it gives us a little preview of the power that you gain. This is Comet Flash, and this is by far the most used special ability in the speedrun. Just as a rule of thumb, any time that you can use a Comet Flash, it saves at least 2 seconds over the time that it would take to just walk that direction normally. I'm not going to spend too much time because this is an auto-scroller, and there's, again, some lag management to do here. If you really want the fastest opportunity, it's simply just kill everything as it spawns. And part of that is kind of also remembering when and where things will spawn as you go through. That's just a matter of practice and memory. But for the most part, we're talking like up to 15 frames of lag that you might encounter. So again, it's not critical that you have a perfect lag management strategy going through. Just for the sake of like showing off and things, I considered going through in the past with, for example, not killing any enemies, picking up all the items that are just scattered around, anything that kind of makes it a little bit more entertaining. But you know, with really optimized runs for this, you do need to try and save every bit of lag frames as you can. That's the way that I like to kind of go through this stage. It's really not too important. You'll get plenty of opportunities for regaining health, and otherwise you can't use magic here. Yeah, there's a couple of cues. I'm just going to talk a little bit about them here as far as when you fire out the fireball, just to make sure you're killing off the enemies when they approach. And the very beginning is one of the best, just because you can use all these visual cues. So as soon as you land on that step, fire it off. When you land here, fire it off. Wait a little bit, fire it off. And then you wait for this diamond to start approaching that cloud and fire again. So really, you don't have to know a whole lot about that region. The elephant guys are the ones that cause the most lag, so definitely if you had to try and memorize what comes where, definitely remember those guys. But beyond that, you can pretty much just play everything on sight. and you don't have to worry too much. Just as soon as you see little guys coming around, launch out a fireball and call it good. And you can see as well the that fire fist that you have has a pretty decent hitbox. So it doesn't matter too much if you get like a precise shot or not. It'll probably still be able to take them out. But that's all you really need to know for this auto-scroller, is just take out things as they appear and have a plan for some areas, but you don't necessarily need it for everywhere. And then we get to Terralisk, which is one of the first major run killers, at least for the most competitive runs of this game. It also introduces us to a couple uses of the comet. So we're lucky enough it starts us off, since it's the most recent power we had, it's what we get immediately. And I do a little maneuver there just to get into that doorway. And that's for the sole purpose of getting these elevators to be on a certain cycle. So let me show you again. This is what happens if you were to just skip that. You head on over, you're missing the elevator cycle. And not only that, when it's coming down, you have to wait for it to complete this cycle and work its way back up. And just, it's not a good time. So instead, going over, entering this room causes the elevators to reset, and you can immediately start on one of them. Dodge one set of spikes, jump on the way up. You have to wait on this one still, but you still get it working just fine. So, show again, we use Comet just to get over to that doorway. You need to hold up to actually go into the doorway once you're connecting with it. For these spike platforms, if you need to dodge them, let me just show you one more time. You should be able to see them foreshadow a little bit that, hey, it's coming up. So when you see that, that's when you jump. So right here, you can see it's just starting to come out. It's not going to hurt you yet, but you need to jump right at that point. And so long as you have a full jump, you'll avoid those spikes. For the rest, you don't really need to worry about it. Something I want to cover from here that I haven't mentioned quite yet is buffering. And buffering it's used in a lot of areas, especially later on when we get into some of the magic manipulation and that sort of thing. But all that buffering for these rooms is that if you're holding magic at some point during the loading zone transition, so long as you're holding that button, it'll execute on the first possible frame when you're in the next area. So I didn't have to time anything there. It just immediately went into the comet. So pretty convenient, and it's very necessary for actually setting up the RNG for manips later on. Right now, though, it's just we're using it to clear space quicker. So this is the climb. This is among the more treacherous, I'd say, parts of the route. So first things first, you do our normal trick of getting stuck in the wall. And you can do this two different ways. If you remember, you can either cling to the wall like that, which will put you in this position, but this, you can't easily go up. So instead, we're going to jump once, and then you'd be able to do the regular zip climb from there. What I personally like to do is actually turn around, and then I hold down and use a zip. So I press to the left, and this will push me to the right, and use that to push me into the wall instead. And that already puts me into a standing position, and then you just, again, continue to do jump and kick, and it'll push you up. So there's two consecutive zips straight up that you need to do at the start. And then you see, you kind of wind up in this nasty area with spikes. You can just kind of ignore that and try to work your way up. Or, and this is why it's kind of precarious, there's a couple different ways to still maintain your zip ability here. How do I want to put this? You can use the spikes to set up and continue zips in this part, but because these blocks are kind of moving across, if you try another zip too quickly, you will get immediately crushed. So there's a particular amount of time you need to wait before doing another zip in this condition, even with the setup that is necessary before everything will work out. So zip, and then another zip. There we go. So the way that I set this up in this sequence is I crouch, wait for this block to come by a little bit, turn around, and that will immediately hit you, but you're still kind of stuck inside the spikes, you can see. So you wait for kind of this sort of orientation. That's when you know that you're good. And then you do another zip. And another zip. And you have to wait, because if you don't wait, you get crushed. That other block is right there too far. It detects it as you being crushed by anything, so not a good time. This is more difficult because it means you need to do four consecutive zips, and there is a penalty if you miss them here. So if you're kind of wary on that, just do the first two and then try to come up with some other alternative plan to get through this section, which, by the way, you still have to be careful with, because this will crush you if you happen to be still climbing on it when it comes back. But otherwise, yeah, those are your two options. Get stuck. And there you go. That's the proper way to climb, and ideally you'd get that all of those first try. But if you don't, then you can definitely come up with something else. And I don't really have a path to recommend here, because this tower climb has kind of always been the strat. But yeah, work out something hopefully more consistent where you can climb up the rest of the way without having to rely on the zips for that section, and that'll get you up there. It is slower, but if it's going to save you a death, then it's not slower. Put it that way.
Yeah, because it looks like you don't have a whole lot of leeway to take too many tries on that third zip.
No, and like I said, if you do it too fast, that's just as bad as doing it too slow.
Yeah.
It's really treacherous, so I advise only if you have significant practice to make it happen. And yeah, the other way through is not particularly kind either, but practice your zips, folks. For the most part, like, the motion is not too hard. Again, it's jump, wait one frame, and then you press Y, and that should carry you all the way up. That's your only window to do it, so practice, practice, practice. So that's what happens if you wait too long. There you go. For the rest of the stage, we've still got enough magic to kind of play around with. In this next room, it's very simple. You can either buffer, so again, buffering is just holding it on the transition, and you'll instantly go into this comet, and then you head to the door. I personally prefer to jump, because it doesn't have to build up any, forward momentum, so you don't have to like walk forward afterwards on that platform just to be able to enter the door. So it works out slightly faster, but really they're not too much different. That room is just kind of a puzzle. It's intended to force you to use Comet, and well, some free magic, can't say no. There's no major tricks in this section, but this will test how good your control of the character is. So all of that detail that I gave earlier on about the momentum, knowing like how it's going to make you feel just a little slippery when you land on things, especially after jumps, this is a screen where all that comes to play. So immediately head on over, keep your jumps short as best you can, and then you jump off the ledge there. There's that switch basically starts this whole sequence with these Yoku blocks appearing. And so long as you keep up a consistent cadence here, like, you'll always be able to hit it. The trick comes in with just actually staying on them, because these are pretty narrow. If you land and you have some momentum stored up, you will basically just keep moving and you walk off the edge even if you didn't press anything. So be aware of that, and just make sure your jumps are precise enough where you're keeping tabs on all these blocks correctly. There you go. And then just getting onto that last elevator is pretty free. For the most part, if you're close enough to the bottom of the platform, it'll give you a freebie and just kind of put you on top of it. So you can jump up to it before it seems like you should be able to. I'll give that another show here. So just immediately, like, I'm underneath it, but it just kind of gives you that last little push and puts you on top, and then you can take it over here. All right, so this is the last room that's not a boss, and we have some other zips to work on. This is your first instance of a crusher, and this one happens to be horizontally oriented. So you can't, well, you don't want to try and zip inside the crusher. There's all sorts of weird kind of physics that go into that are no good. So instead, when you first enter this room, you need to swap to Crescent, which is with L and R buttons to swap all of your magic. And we've got a nice little edge here, so we use some of these same techniques from Infernus, where you want to get yourself stuck into the wall, which I'm not having much luck at the moment. But once you've got your foot kind of stuck in there, again, you can try to do this immediate jump to special. It's going to push you forward, and then you're set up so you can just punch and jump, and it'll take you right to the top. You don't have to worry about any of the rest of the crusher. But it's another instance basically doing the same thing as you did in Infernus, just with less room to work with. So if this goes wrong, come on. If this goes wrong and you get a mistimed zip, oh man, this controller is different. I don't struggle with this on console, we'll just put it that way. So there we go. We're stuck in the wall. If you try to do the zip and you hit the button too late, so it's going to be jump, and then you were to wait 1, 2, 3 with the crescent. So jump, 2, 3, crescent. You're going to zip straight up and just happen to be in these spikes. And so long as you're basically still within a wall and you collide with an enemy, you just instantly die. So that's a bad time. Don't let that happen. Practice the timing. You have a 2-frame window, and it's very closely together. So when you hit jump and when you hit your special, just try to make sure that it's the right one.
So question, I assume it's something simple, but you just haven't mentioned it. Is switching which magic you're using just like L and R?
Yep, it is L and R.
Okay.
And you do need to know that a little bit for some of these later ones too. But for whatever reason, the game has a habit of anytime that you get a new magic, it will immediately make it so that if you press left once, you'll already be at comet. So there's a little bit of Mega Man type just memorizing of where you are in your position and how many taps to get to the particular power that you want and all that. So that's just something to get used to. There you go. And that's how you get through Terralisk. The boss. If you heard my commentary from the run yesterday, this boss is unique in that there's nothing you can do to do more damage to him in a cycle. Any damage source always does 1 damage. You want to be hitting this eye right as it opens, and part of this is just kind of memorizing the correct places to stand. In particular, that is probably the hardest jump to make, and I honestly don't recommend doing that kind of jump unless you're quite familiar and confident with it. There's other ways to do it. You've got enough magic right now. You can set up a comet which is probably the main way that I'd recommend getting over this guy. Like, you don't have a whole lot of health. Touching him will do 2 damage to you, and that can hurt if you're in a bad spot. These early phases are pretty reasonable and easy, but this one, you can jump over if you time it well, or you can just comet and be completely safe. So I recommend cometing. If you want to show off, you can do a little bit less than that. Once he gets to this size, so I personally have a couple different spots to try and set up. So this line right here in the floor is where you just kind of wait, and you will be safe. You can just kind of move on up to it. After that, you want to go to right in the middle and keep it moving from there. Basically, just as you get more and more familiar with this fight, you'll know where to stand kind of with each next cycle. They're not too threatening so long as you kind of have that figured out. And his hitbox is still kind of deceiving. Like, it seems a lot bigger than it really is. Just make sure that as you're going through, you do remember when to start crouching in the corner to hide from him. So now you can set up here. And this positioning should also make his shots fairly trivial. And you just run back. When he takes up the entire height of the screen, that's the very last cycle. So you need to be ready. Again, we're going to try to end this as close to the center of that room as we can. So you count the rotations. As soon as he turns back, there's 3 rotations. So you should see 1, 2, and 3. And then right as as the little eyeball slot reaches that forward part for the last rotation, jump forward with a kick. It should put you pretty close to the center, and yeah, shouldn't be too much of a problem. And then you get heal, which has uses, but we won't see it until probably the very, very end. So yeah, just to catch up a little bit, I currently have hitboxes on. I have my own viewer that I made for this some number of years ago. And this is purely for demonstration. If you're interested in trying out this game and just want to have that information handy, I can provide a link sometime later on, just so you can reach that for yourself. But for right now, yeah, we're not in a position right now where the hitboxes make sense, so I'll turn them off. So this whole instance, there's nothing really to say here. The only thing that matters for timing in these sections is that you get hit at the earliest possible opportunity. And usually that means kind of center aligned along the bottom. You want to get your hair. So if you look in the background, you have kind of different waves. You want the pointy bit of your hair to be slightly above that. And like right now, I'm actually a little too high, but I'm not going to try and mess with it to get anything better. And this helps, so as soon as you get hit, you're going to fall off the screen as soon as possible, as well as get hit the soonest, and therefore progress through. You can kind of go around and pick up as many lives as you want, but just don't putz around too much, and miss that opportunity to take the early hit. Here, again, mash all the buttons to get through the text pretty quickly. Be on the lookout for this. So when that animation and he says Mystic Force, that's your time to slow down and just take a break. Only one button press will pop up before it goes back to this menu. And if you happen to keep mashing through that, Old Man is going to tell you all the story all over again. So definitely don't do that.
Well, it's the classic would you like to hear the tutorial again trap.
Yep, and this isn't the only time that you need to be wary of that. This is actually the easier time because he actually has some dialogue before that menu pops up. There's another time later on where he has exactly one line, and if you're mashing, you will lose. So that one line turns into 20 real quick, and you don't want that to happen. All right, so now we're in the second continent, which is the biggest, and it kind of gives you an illusion of you can take multiple different paths and so on, but really there's only kind of one trajectory that you want to take this. And so we're heading up to Petrolith's castle, which is, of course, the Ice Temple, because everywhere needs some kind of elemental themed castle. And of course that means ice physics, but you really don't have to worry about that too much. All of the same rules about momentum apply. It just means that they take longer to wind down. So like I stop holding forward quite a bit before this, and you can see it kind of slides on. For the most part, that isn't going to matter too much. So you don't need to learn anything special about ice physics to be able to take this on. Just continue to move forward as best as you can. So first things first, switch. It's one left to get to Comet. There's 2 Comet opportunities here, and you use these little ice flows that do speed you up for as long as you're on them, but they also, it's a little fidgety to kind of stay on them in different circumstances. So immediately from the start, you're going to start with the new power selected. And like I said before, usually it's 1 L press will swap your magic down to Comet, and you can be set from there. So take a jump here so that you just barely clear this edge, and that means you'll probably clear this other edge too. And then right as about where you get that diamond, start mashing out 2 comets. Land on the ice flow, just keep it up for a little bit. Jump as soon as it clears this platform. You land on 1 more on the right side here, hopefully. It starts up a little bit, but you don't take this very long, and then you jump up and do another comet. And that's how that that's how that entire room goes. We're using a lot of magic really quickly, so as far as just management goes, that means we have to get some more very soon. If you jump too late up here, that'll happen, so you'll just grab onto the wall. To prevent that, you can just not hold forward and let yourself fall and get in a better position. It's a really minor amount of time to do that kind of setup. So that's pretty much it. But it's really important as well that before you get to the next room, you can't change your magic while you're using it. So as soon as this comet is done, you're going to want to swap to Crescent before you enter the next room. So there's not a whole lot of time to do that. So I'm going to swap right here. We're in Crescent, and you head into the next room.
Is that...
So just at real-time speed.
And that's L, I'm assuming?
That would be another L, yes.
Okay.
Swap. Okay. Now we're into the big elevator room. The reason that you really needed to swap to Crescent is because you start this room with a buffer. So during that transition, you just hold X, and you hold forward as well. You're instantly going to be doing this Crescent, and then you walk forward. You need to touch this, but basically, if you were to keep moving forward, you're going to run into one of these little Yeti guys. So just to demonstrate, if you keep holding forward, you're going to take that hit. It's not going to matter too much because what we wanted has already occurred. You see both of these magics appear, which is awesome. Hooray, we get full magic off for basically nothing. But to make sure that you keep up forward movement, you're going to want to just do a little jump. So there's the Crescent, jump, and then as soon as the Crescent is off screen, swap to Comet again, and then right away, we're going to use it. And that puts us in perfect position to land on this guy. You jump on the ends, and then 1 and 2. So again, we're using a lot of magic, and that means that we need to get some more manipulations in the next room. And that's why this is kind of a divergence point. The path that I just showed you is, for the most part, that's kind of an advanced path. You should only go for that one if you're confident that you're going to be able to get the manipulations in the next room, which are not free. So I'm going to show you as well some alternative strategies. This is kind of basically the old route, where you'd go through, you just basically get these magics for free. And then you just continue on normally, take this same little iceberg, and you'd work your own way across these elevators. I missed a jump before, but you don't use any magic through this room, and you kind of try to stay as close to the ceiling as you can. The reason being that these little kitties down here are just lag lag heaven. So you don't want to see the kitties if you can help it.
Yeah, it's real noticeable as soon as they started moving around.
Yeah, it's that's one of the reasons that like it's not just a matter of the comets are faster. They can get you in these situations where you can go somewhere that is better off for you. So staying away from the lag is helpful. That's the way that you'd go through it without using any kind of magic, just basically taking one elevator and then the next, so that you only see these kitties at the very end. And that'll get you through without needing to use any magic whatsoever. And that saves you from having to do the setups for these manips in the next room. But I'm going to show you the manips now, because those brave among you might want to try it. So 1, 2. So you'd get to this room, and again, you want to swap back from the comet into the crescent. And as you get in, we're not going to buffer it, but there's a very particular timing that you want to make sure that you fire off a crescent so that this guy will drop a big magic. I'm going to go through one more time just to set it up appropriately. Oops. That can happen if you are a little shy on that. Okay, so we're in this room. This is tough because the cue for it is very soon after entering the room. And you have to kind of be reactive based on when the main character starts to move. Because what you're looking for is basically right when your face kind of lines up with that pillar. So at this point, you'd launch a crescent and you'd get a magic drop. And it's pretty, there's 3 frames of leeway here. So that might be too late. Okay, so that was the last possible frame. That's too early, and you'll get a green drop. That's too late, and you're going to get a diamond. So 3 frames in this will give you that. So again, practice it a lot. If you're confident that you can pull it off like 60-75% of the time, then sure, you can go for it. But the amount of time that you're saving here, like for doing this entire strategy, is like 6 or 7 seconds. So just weigh that in with kind of what your own expectations are to try something this difficult, because we're not done in that room yet. There's 2 manips actually. So there's this first one, that'll be good. Then you got to jump over some kitties. That's too late, I think. Yep. That's good. Okay, so that one with the green health in between it, this is your next manipulation point. So you do a full jump, and then you're looking to try and launch another crescent as soon as you're kind of between these windows. So right here. So you'd launch one, and Kitty will drop another magic. That's another 3-frame window. This one, you at least have the visual cue of kind of lining yourself up. Your height might be different by the time you get in between like these 2 little window pieces. But so long as you fire when you're like horizontally positioned between them, it should be good. So this one is more forgiving than the first. But either way, both of these I would say are pretty advanced. And
that one looked like
only go for them if you really feel like you can do it.
That one looks like it has a pretty good lineup of the hand meeting that column on the one window.
Yeah, and again, my advice here is just I'm talking about the things that I use for my own timing consistency on these. Definitely experiment with it yourself. You might see a different cue or come up with a different rhythm for how to launch these things out. Use what works is my best advice there. And then there you go. So that's the advanced strategy. If you just want to get through, you don't have to basically stop for any of these. You just jump over all of the kitties. It is kind of a tight jump. You want to do full jumps every opportunity, but then you can just keep going through. And this assumes, though, that you have full magic, so you didn't use any in the prior room. But pretty reasonable and forgiving. This one's just tough because you do have to react kind of like right away after the room transition. I did that too late. But you get a feel for it, just enough time. Might be too early. Nope, we're good. And then we are on to our next crusher. There's nothing special to do here, unfortunately. If you watch the task, they do all sorts of nutso stuff, but you can't do any of that. Don't even try. I've spent probably more time in this room than any other room in the game at this point, trying to find something, anything. Like there's all sorts of silly things that you can do, climbing up into the crushers, but everything's going to get you killed. So don't mess around with it too much. Just follow the pattern. So stand a little bit back. This is your kind of first waiting position, and as soon as you see it start to rise, you can jump up in and continue forward. Kill the slime, and you kind of want to position yourself back away from these corners, because if you're too close and you just jump while holding forward, you will grab onto the wall immediately, and that's not a good time. So just give yourself a little bit of breathing room so that you can jump and clear it for the next setup. Overall, like, there's not a whole lot in this crusher sequence that is tightly timed. It's just moving from one stage to the next. If you do mess up, don't just take the loss rather than trying to do something clever and get back on cycle. It will not work. You will die. Just take the time loss. It's only about 3 or 4 seconds to miss a cycle, and then work your way through there. Well, that was a generous one. I haven't gotten a drop on that guy in ages. But that's the general progression through this entire area. So just a little bit at a time. You want to make sure that you're timing this just right, or you will get crushed if you're a little slow. Clearing that jump is important. If you hit the side of it, you might wind up having to eat an extra cycle. And don't challenge this last one. It looks like you might have enough time to run over to the end. You don't. And there you go. That's how to clear that. Boss is pretty simple so long as you're paying attention. You want to use Comet and nothing else, because Comet's the only thing that's going to do 4 damage to him. Just be aware that the patterns that come in at you are random. So be reactive. Don't fret too much about whatever pattern he gives you. And even if you're out of position for that last one, that's fine. Let it go. And Comet your way through. Really, it's not too difficult there. This is one of the few fights where you really can't get yourself into a good position for that final bit. Obviously, you still want to hold left after your Comet's done so that you wind up somewhat closer to the center, but it's going to eat up time no matter what. So just one more time. Comet. He actually has 3 hitboxes, so the left eye, the right eye, and then the middle like head thing, and you want to hit all of them. So don't be shy about jumping up far enough. And pretty much as soon as he's stable on the back there is when you want to do that. So right there, I missed the top. And then you have to go through another cycle. For every 2 magic that you're missing when you get here, like let's say that you went for one of the earlier manips and you missed it, that equates to an additional cycle. So you can only do 2 damage to him without a magic. You can do 4 damage with magic. So with magic, obviously 4 cycles. For every cycle that you miss, let's say that you come in with 6 magic, that means you have to do 5 cycles. 4 magic is 6 cycles, and it adds up. So you really want to get here with full magic however possible. One more time. Yep, and those will crush you.
Oh no.
So there's a temptation to show off here, simply because you're not doing a whole lot other than just kind of dodging. And if you're jumping around and trying to be silly, some weird clips might happen sometimes, and just bad news. So, yeah. Don't try to be fancy. Just stick with the plan, and everything should be okay. An important thing to note here, and this is largely why the route is kind of oriented around the stage order that it is. Every time you beat a boss, you get a full health and magic refill, which is pretty critical for some of these later paths. But some of these stages don't have bosses, so you have to kind of balance out your magic uses on them, and determine where that's best. Next up, we're going to go to the Falls of Torment, which is among the quickest stages, but it's also one of the silliest, for a reason that I will show you very soon. So, go Falls of Torment. You have a new power. That whole... this is going to be just a 9... however many way shot. Doesn't really come into practice until one of the couple later stages. But again, if you just hit L immediately, it's going to be Comet. So you don't really have to do any kind of thinking or major tapping, and you want to get to Comet pretty much as soon as possible. There's several different routes through this stage, but I want to explain first why this stage itself is so tricky. And it all has to do with these slimes. So I don't actually have a hitbox set up for that little projectile that they send up, but this is a very unique projectile, and it's awful because it's one of the few things in the game that will knock you out of Comet. So you get too close to it in Comet, you will take damage. Most everything else, you're kind of invulnerable, and you can ignore that. The only other thing that does that is spikes. So that is not good, and unfortunately, pretty much how they spawn, there's already a projectile in the air, so the only way that you can get through this stage is kind of taking a slightly lower route. And that's what this route sets up. So the old way of doing it, swap to Comet, go over. As soon as you leave that edge, you'd basically do a low Comet so that you take out the slime itself. You do a small jump to stay up on that log, but you still have to avoid the slime ball coming down. There's just kind of a lot to unpack with each step here. You do a turnaround there to just basically get the... Actually, no. With the old route, what you do... Man, too many routes. I'm getting all mixed up. Go through. You do another Comet, and then you wait it out. And then you do another low one here. Take a damage boost. And then one more to finish out the stage. And that's it for the stage. It is really short, but if you mess up, like you saw there briefly, if you wind up in the water for whatever reason, it's real bad. You can't jump out of the water. So I can't do anything here other than get to a wall and climb up. And of course, those fish are going to harass you the entire time. So getting in the water is always bad news. The faster way to do it is you need to swap very quickly, do 2 comets, and then you do the damage boost through. Do another low comet there, and then you kind of continue the rest of the way as normal. So you finish the stage with 4 magic always. And that is slightly faster, between half a second and a second faster. So, again, pick your poison. In a race scenario, they're going to be roughly equivalent. It's just you have more room for error to do the faster way. You need to make sure that you press it right away and that you do it too quickly. If you wait too long, what's going to happen is you're going to reach the end of that log and you'll just kind of end up in the water before you can jump off of it. So demonstrate here. So I took like 2 steps and there, I already cleared the log with just that much distance, and bad news. So
Are these enemies on global cycles, or is it dependent on like when they load? Like if you take an extra second just to make sure you switch in time, does that punish you in the cycles?
They are based on when they spawn relative to your position. So basically, as you progress and they are about to appear on screen, that is what determines their cycle. So if you wait it out just like here, and you really wanted to be sure of, oh yeah, I'm going to switch to Comet, and I'm going to inch right here, and okay, now comet twice. Like, all the enemies are still going to be in the same cycles that you'd expect. So, yeah, if you wanted to take your time and get those setups, that's fine. It's just the cost of doing that extra setup might be too much relative to how much you gain from doing it that way.
Yep.
So instead, I'd recommend doing this holder strat. When you land on this log, I do a small extra jump to wait out one of the other slime cycles before doing the next set of comets. Something else that I haven't gone over yet about how... Yeah, I might as well discuss this now. One thing that is important, especially with comets, is buffering your jump. So you see right now, just jumping is normal. The jump continues even after your comet completes. So if I were to jump and comet, as long as I'm still holding jump, you see I basically finish out that jump. And if I instead were to let go midway through the comet, it would be less powerful, but you'd still basically keep up the jump trajectory. So yeah, you get just a little bit more if you were to let go in the middle and you fall down. This is really important coming up in some of the later pieces, but even for like this stage, you want to be sure that you are holding jump at the end of some of these comets so that you have time to prepare and do anything else. So if I were to do this, you see how I finish out the full jump at the end of that comet. It gives me just a little bit of time and breathing room as we move on to the next slimes. And then you just, once you're clear of all the slimes, good to go. So that's something that's going to be really important when we do caverns. But right now we've got Water Temple, and this is, as a stage, it's not bad for the speed run. To play it casually is awful, as water temples tend to be. Just a little bit about swimming mechanics. It's basically you have global movement in whatever direction. You don't have to do anything. It's just you press a direction, you move that direction. You're not like trying to, not like Donkey Kong Country where you'd tap the button to kind of like build up some speed or anything like that. Nope, it's very simple. You have a kick, but something that you can do here that you couldn't as easily do on land is that you can immediately cancel it. So as you kick, if you press the other direction, it immediately just stops the animation and you can continue on forward. So this is useful in a couple different locations, but for the most part, you're going to be using that on some of the switches where you need to trigger a switch and then just immediately move on because you don't want to wait that animation out. Moving in water, in general, you are best off if you can get to a wall and climb because you move slightly faster that way than you do otherwise. So there's the first switch. These switches control the gates. Oh, I can't get back up there right now. And the secret of the switches that takes a long time for casual players to understand, in a given room, any switch swaps all of the gates. So it's not like one switch is attached to one gate or another. Every switch will swap every gate. So if you're trying to plot your own way through, keep that in mind. But otherwise, just follow on with the plan that I'm providing here. This room, just very quickly hold left from the start. You grab the extra magic, and then you comment over. And again, climb down where possible. Here's another opportunity where you're going to buffer. So as you enter the next room, just buffer a comet, head on up, and then again. And then the immediate following room, we also buffer, but this one's critical because it also causes magic. So this guy's going to turn into a 4 magic piece. So stick around for that. And then heading up, this is kind of one of the trickier segments depending on how optimized you're trying to be. I'm just going to follow through on everything I've said so far. Get over, jump in the water, move through, attack, cancel that switch. Okay, hold left. Comet over, go straight down. Buffer as you go into this room. Head up into the next. buffer again, and hold back when you're done with that. Okay, so now we've got the magic. We're all in the same area that we want to be. Those dragons are a pain in the butt. They take 4 damage to kill, and they follow you pretty relentlessly to the point where if you stop to fire a crescent, usually by the time that you're done freezing from the crescent animation, they will already be on top of you. So you do want to try and take it out on your way up. But first thing, we're on Comet right now. We need to swap to Crescent. So swap to Crescent, take out the dragon. Otherwise, that's going to happen. You have 2 options. So you can either do 2 canceled kicks, something like, if I can, like that, where you hit, cancel it, go back and do another hit. And then you go over to the cannon turtle and fire off a crescent, which simultaneously hits this switch. So that's the point of doing that. Your other option is to just let the full animation of the kick play out. So long as the dragon is close enough to you, its iframes are short enough that the kick will actually hit twice and it'll KO the dragon for you. So sometimes that might be the safer option if you're more confident in your spacing, because going up, didn't swap to Crescent. Going up with just the kick can be a little more difficult, but so long as you can get rid of those enemies, the rest of that room is pretty free. Just make sure you do the switches and move in the correct direction, and should be all set. There you go. They also generate a ton of lag, so there is benefit to killing them off rather than just trying to evade them. There you go. So now we're back up to full magic. Everything's happy. We're into the biggest room. Head over, just slightly wait. You want to be high enough in this section before you start the comet so that you don't hit the switch. And this dragon, again, you can either try to do some special kick, reverse kick. I am much more comfortable with doing just a full kick and let the animation play out, because you don't have a whole lot of room to work here, and the current is working against you, so you can't like reposition yourself for a better second hit. But so long as you kill off that dragon, you go through here, the direction of the current is working against you, and you're 2 magic down, but you can just comet through that and still be in the good position for this region. So one more time, just in full. Got that guy, hit the switch, hit the next switch, grab refill, it's magic, and there. So I do it right as I get to that corner, and that should be just enough to, well, take out the dragon without much problem. Move down at the end and then cut across. And then we're into, depending on how you look at it, the easiest or the hardest boss. And it's the easiest so long as you follow the plan. So we're just going to keep some states here real quick. This room has a current that goes all the way around it except for in the center. As you enter the room, so long as you're holding forward and up to the point where you get right here, basically you kind of line yourself up. You can look at the background to help get you on the right page, but you want to be here where you can see all 4 at once, and then we've already swapped to the multi shot, the Starfire, and just let it rip right here, right away. And then you keep moving up. Nope, I whiffed there too. For shame. So we're already on Starfire, you head straight up. And then one more as soon as you get to the center piece of the room. So again, just using the background as the proper way to do it. And then the rest is just kind of timing it so that you're able to kill it off, fire off another shot right as they're opening. I count it down usually as intervals of 4 seconds. So after the first one, you're in position, fire away, 1, 2, 3, 4, fire, 1, 2, 3, 4, fire. And then you immediately this is something that's a little different. It's a caveat of the way that a room works for the game. So, like, yes, technically this is all one room, but it's actually, since it's a larger area, it's actually composed of four 256 by 256 pixel regions. And the game only cares about those 256 by 256 regions. So if you stay in the center of this room, you actually wait the longest for your magic power-up animation to play out. So as soon as you're fired off that last shot, you immediately want to head up to any of the corners. I like to use the left one, and this will cut down on almost a full second's worth of moving you, repositioning you during this cutscene sequence. And yeah, there you go, time stop. So that is just one of the caveats of that particular area, is that the center of the room is not necessarily the center of the room. So now we're good. We beat a boss, so we're at full magic, full health. We're ready to go stomping into another kind of intermediary stage that doesn't have a boss. But this is also another opportunity for a manipulation. And this one is, again, kind of a tricky one. There's not real good visual cues for setting it up, but at the very least, there's an alternative if you miss it. So if you go for it and you don't get the magic, it doesn't really hurt you that bad, and you can just take the old strat anyway. So I'll show both of those right now. So the Sand Rivers.
So after this stage, probably a good time to take a break, do you think?
Yeah, I'd like to take a break and just stretch legs a little bit. So this stage will go by pretty quick too.
Okay.
So I'll just cover the pieces real quick, and then we'll jump on into the rest of it. So first things first, again, we're starting on Time Stopper. You want to get to Comet right away. So just swap to Comet. And you don't have to do it as immediately as you did in the Falls of Torment. Where you want to jump is, if you look in the background, you can see these different like little areas. You want to be aligned with this one right here, the second one from the left. Of like the little stacked bricks. So you get to that point, jump up, comet right away. It doesn't really matter when you comet here. What matters is when you do the second comet. And well, the visual cue that I kind of try to use is this little altar in the background. You kind of want to be mostly aligned with the left part of it. So let yourself fall a little bit, and then let it rip again. And if you did it right, he should... Okay, I was actually 1 or 2 frames early. He should drop a magic. So just do that at full speed. There. That's another about 3-frame window. You just have to kind of develop your own timing for it. If you get it, then you can immediately do another comet, another comet, another comet, and then you'd comet all the way through. I did a couple of late ones there, but the idea is that you'd get your final comet to line up with that magic drop, so you wind up with a bonus magic, and you can move on to the next stage. So I'll just demonstrate again. Oh, that's too late. Yep. This is the old strat. You just jump through, you climb up this side, jump over, one more comet, and then you land comfortably on the side of that guy. When you're down here, this is another opportunity to set up a zip. So just easy and quick way to get up there. You finish the stage with 4 magic one way or another. Just depends on how confident you are in getting that manipulation or not. And you can abort right away if you want. I do a little jump there just to make sure that like I stick around long enough to actually get the drop. The timing for the remaining comets should be like right away. I'm not giving great examples right here. You'd want to comet there, comet here, and then one more. And then that'll put you right here. So same position, 4 magic, you just happen to use 2 more comets to do it, so therefore about 3 to 4 seconds faster. And one more time with just the old strat in case you miss it. So assuming that I didn't get the magic there, you do a jump, take out that croc. It's kind of a blind jump to get there. But either way, so long as you get to the point of jumping off that one, you'll be able to get through without too much trouble. But yeah, this is just over the halfway point, so we'll take a small break. I'll go get some water, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Yeah, just as a quick reminder, this is GDQ Hotfix. It's a series about speedruns, speedrun relating things, races, randomizers, just showing off stuff between our main events here on the GDQ channel. If you'd like to see more stuff, tomorrow is Time Capsule. It's a show about games that were released in the same year. Instead of doing multiple games, they're just doing Super Mario Galaxy tomorrow. So if you want to tune in for some Super Mario Galaxy, that'll be starting 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. But we're going to take a quick break, like Omni said. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Encourage you all to do the same. Get up, stretch, get some water, take care of yourselves. But we'll be back in just a few. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Community Spotlight. We just took a quick little break, took an opportunity to stretch, take care of ourselves. Hope you all managed to do the same. We're going to be continuing the tutorial with OmniGamer on Skyblazer here pretty shortly. But just as a quick reminder, if you are interested in helping out with SGQ 2021 online, the main volunteering applications are closed, but there are a few more positions that will be opening up as we get closer to the event. Keep your eyes on gamesdonequick.com for more information on that. And of course, if you'd like to have more information about Hotfix, what it is we do, upcoming shows and all that, you can go to gamesdonequick.com/hotfix for a lot of information there. And there's a form down there in the bottom left you can submit. Let us know games that you personally would like to show on Hotfix. But with that out of the way, Alpha, for people who tuned in partway through, give us the real quick reminder of what it is we're doing here today, why this is connected to Speed Seasons.
Yeah, so as everybody has probably heard me say 1,000 times at this point, Speed Seasons Get Yourself Speed running event. It's a big tournament. You can find all that information on speedseasons.com for the very, very brief version. But, you know, associated with that, every Monday I hijack Railcoon show, and we have a tutorial of the game that's being featured, and people are learning over the next 2 weeks. And this week is, or I guess this game is Skyblazers. or Skyblazer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people always want to add an S to this one. It's just Skyblazer.
There's only one of them.
Well, you'd be surprised. There's actually a little bit of lore, old story time. The original task that was done for Skyblazer was actually done for a beta version of the game.
Oh, really?
And for whatever reason, the beta version seems to be the most prevalent ROM flying around in the far reaches of the internet. So do be careful. The beta version of the game has some levels that are entirely different. So there's, for example, the level I'm going to go to in a moment would be a dead giveaway about which version you happen to be playing. But there you go. Just a little bit of old speed lore related to the game. All right. So when we last left our hero, we had just cleared the sand river with 4 magic, and that's pretty critical. We've got another fork in the road, and this is another opportunity for this routing to come in, where you really have to kind of pick and choose where you want to best apply your magic, where it'll save you the most time, basically. And this is a pretty significant divergence from how we used to do the game. And I say used to, a lot of these new manipulations and things that I'm bringing up, especially the ones that have much more like rigorous time element to them, only 3-frame windows and so on, all of those came up when I rerouted the game about 2 years ago. And that opened up a whole lot of new possibilities for us, one of which is finally getting full magic from the Fortress of Shirul, which you'll see in a moment. But first, we've got 4 magic. We can get through Gateway with just 4 magic. There's 2 different ways to do this, but let me just show you the way that, if you're following along with everything so far and you intend to try and do some of these other manips in fortress, just follow on with this initial pathway that I'm going to show. So gateway, you want to jump up immediately, get up here, and the new gimmick in this stage are these blocks. You can punch them, get rid of them however you liked, but you need to just come up with a set of 3 to clear off those, and they conveniently just leave us some magic right away here. If you wanted to skip the magic though, oops, you have the option to skip the magic if you go up above and basically just continue on without it. You don't want to do this unless you have full magic, which with the way that this route currently works is not possible. So don't worry about that right now. It's just something you could do. Instead, focus on clearing these through, and then you're going to take one comet, land on top, jump, and do another comet. And look at that, we're in the ceiling, and we don't have to worry about all that mess that's going on below. When you get to the end, and you can't see yourself, but you just kind of have to judge, like, oh, the center of the screen, I'm probably right about there. When you get to the end, jump again, and then basically take a damage boost off of that turtle cannon's shells. Something about the opening that I kind of advised against before in the ice crusher, you want to go up straight away to this one and just grab the side of it. And the reason for that is that it puts you in good position to grab onto this part, because you can't do it from here, and if you were to try and go up here, like, it's kind of sticky, it doesn't work out as well. So instead I would just recommend going from there, and then you immediately get up into position, and then you can start just punching your way through the blocks. Take the damage boost in the right direction, and again, you've got enough magic to clear all of these. So as you're heading across here, again, when kind of that last block is lined up with your comet signature, and you do get a feel for this as you go through the stage, like there's a brief amount of time where it's like you start to walk off. You can jump still, and in that case you can jump, you kind of head down, and you aim for that cannonball, get a damage boost, and then just continue on your merry way. One more. And that's the end of the stage. You exhaust all your magic to do that, though, which doesn't really put us in a great position for the next stage. But that's why we've got this alternative route. There used to be kind of a plan for heading into the next stage, which is another auto-scroller, where just if you happen to get magic, like if you got lucky and an enemy dropped a big magic, then you could do some fancier things in that stage. Now we don't need to rely on luck. It's still difficult, and you'll need to pay attention to a lot of what I'm discussing here. But heading on into Fortress Roll, the ideal is that you get through this stage. Right now we have 0 magic, but since it's one of those aerial auto-scrollers, it doesn't really matter. You can't use magic anyways, so this is entirely just to your benefit to try and fill up. The catch is that you have some tricky manipulations to do to get there, and this isn't just a matter of timing things right anymore. You have to follow a very specific path, because I'm not going to go into all the details, but it has to do with subpixels and prior stagnant sprites and a whole bunch of other stuff that is,
Oh boy.
I really don't want to explore. It took me a long time to figure this out. Like, this is a manipulation that I was looking for years. And then finally I found it, and then found out, hey, it doesn't work half the time. So then I had to go back to the drawing board and figure out other stuff. But anyways, just follow what I'm doing. It's not too difficult so long as you keep up with that and just kind of pay attention and pay along. So first things, don't move forward. Don't get that diamond. Just fire off, and this little exploder duty is going to take the hit. And then you move over this other diamond. Continue to hold forward. Just hold forward. You don't need to do any more flight or anything like that until you get here. And what's going to happen is you're going to hit some bats. As soon as you hit the bats, you still have all the momentum that you had stored up earlier, so you can let go forward and just let the momentum carry you as soon as you land. So long as you've been hit by this bat and you were holding forward the whole time, you're good. Let go now, and you're going to see you land, and then you kind of just slide into position. And you've got the iframes to work with. This is where the timing element comes in. So all of that was just set up. Now you need to wait for the bats to be in a particular position. And you can kind of think there's 3 bats right there. You want them all to be bunched up kind of as close as they can together. Something like this. And I don't know the exact frames off the top of my head, so I'm going to just guess it right here. So at this point, you'd want to launch a punch, which will kill all of them instantly. Okay. That might be too late already. Nope. Okay. 2, 2, 3. Yeah, I think I'm already too late. But this is just how these things go. So I'll get set up again. So don't get the diamond. Avoid that guy's explosion. Don't get that diamond. Hold forward. Hit. Okay. So about when they are all together, fire off. There's one. Let me see the 79, 22. So 22. I'm looking at the frame counter in the upper left.
Are we checking to see how
20.
generous this is right now?
It's 3 frames. So
Okay.
22, 23, and 24. And I'm just trying to show you kind of like the positioning of the bats when you need to punch to be successful. So 22, so when they look like this is good. And they basically are kind of forming that line. So long as you hit them within those 3 frames, there will be a magic drop somewhere along the way. That's the tricky one. The other one is free, so long as you've followed the rest of the instructions so far. So again, holding forward. And you do get kind of a rhythm for it. That was too early, but we're just going to continue so I can demonstrate the other part of this. I get that diamond, you get the damage boost here, and it'll land you right on top of the turtle. And then when you see the other exploder guy just on the side, fire off another one. This one isn't like too strictly timed, but you need to be here. This is the critical part, and what we're going to do is watch this bat. So all of the rest of these manipulations have all been trying to get your projectile to run into an enemy that's moving towards you. Instead, this bat is basically doing a circle in this area, and we're going to launch an attack that's basically over top of the bat, and the bat's going to move into it. And that leads to basically a huge opening, a huge number of frames that you can do this successfully. So you just kind of have to watch, and you're going to see the bat basically move up into it. The hitbox, here, let me show you this too. The hitbox on your fist is just so huge that you don't really need to worry about when you're sending it off, because the bat should still run into it like whenever. So I don't need to do any special timing here. I can even fire it early and usually it'll work. So that one should be free. You should always be able to get that 4 magic out of this, so long as you followed everything else beforehand. Because if some of the subpixels were wrong, and the bat could be out of position and nonsense. So just follow the pattern from before, and this should be all right. And even if you missed that manipulation earlier with those bats, you still have more enemies. You kind of have to just wing it at this point. But maybe you'll get lucky and you'll get another couple pieces of magic. Even just these small ones is good. Wow, they're being very generous. Every 2 magic that you get is an extra comet you can use in the next stage. So even just 2 more magic is beneficial instead of the full 4. Something else that I haven't really gone into yet is just how the RNG works in this game overall. And I've been glossing over it just for the sake of instruction on setting up these manipulations. But the way to think about this is that every time that you open a room, you see right now that number up there, it isn't the actual RNG, but that is the number of frames you have until the next big magic drop. You need to kill an enemy on exactly that frame to guarantee that you get a big magic drop. So it's constantly going. That number is going to be the same on every room. So every time you enter a new room, that number resets. It starts the exact same pattern again. And that means that so long as you can make your motions exactly perfect to what they need to be, you can guarantee these drops. And that's why. So use this as the example again. Wait through. And you'd probably want to attack, I think, right about here. There's since you're killing 3 enemies, it's actually going to take 3 pulls from the RNG. So you want to be a little bit sooner than that. So like the 4 and the 5, all of those will give you magic. So that's how that works. In the same way, I'll just demonstrate on our favorite bat here. So if I were to launch this out, you can see it's counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As soon as you see the bat grimace, the RNG should be 0. Well, apparently I messed up something along the way. Well, it still hit that guy, but you can see kind of how this all works out. And so long as you come up with these stable plans of like when to go in and attempt to get these hits in, so long as you can do it consistently, then you'll be able to make the best use of that. There's the best opportunity. Take this. Okay. Just going one by one. Get this. Yep, there we go. Full magic. So this is kind of the ideal. And I'm getting the ideal so that I can show you all the different paths for the next stage. Because like I said, you can... There's a different path for every amount of magic that you do or don't get in this stage. And before, this was basically just a crapshoot. There's 13 enemies here that can drop things, and you just had to hope that maybe you could kill one on the right frame to get a big magic drop. No longer. And that manip helps us, even though it's fairly difficult. There. So that's why you do these stages kind of out of order, just so that you can build up that magic again, and head on into the Storm Fortress. Every stage has had kind of its own gimmick so far. The Storm Fortress is one of the more difficult ones to deal with because there's no platforms. There's just these wind currents that kind of act like platforms. It's also kind of like swimming, which also means that it's all terrible. Honestly, this stage is pretty fun, but you can already see there's wind currents that'll take you every which way, and working with the wind currents at the right times is going to be beneficial. But there's also some other physics that play into it. So, for example, whenever you're using a magic, if you're inside a wind current, for whatever reason, it moves you up. So if I'm going to comet right here, you can see how it just continues to move me up. That's just one weird property of them. One of the other things is just the overall planning as you go through. There's plenty of these magic drops just kind of hidden around, but again, it's all going to depend on how much magic you came in with. So I'm going to start with just showing the optimal strategy. If you come in with completely full magic, you'll be able to just comet everything. So you buffer out a comet in the very first step. Jump, comet again, and you just mash on comet up until you get to here. Kill that guy, and one more comet, and you're through the room. So, yeah, reasonable enough if you have full magic. If you don't have full magic, you have to start cutting some of those comets. So I'm going to assume this is a strategy if you only have 2 when you get in. 3, and then you skip this one and hope that you go under that guy. So that's the strategy if you have 2. I'm going to show that one more time. So you skip the buffered one at the beginning, and you just kind of run forward. And when you get an opportunity, you go in that wind current. If you are a little bit late on that, you might end up hitting those guys, and then they put me out of position. Don't be too afraid of that. Just make sure that before you start again, you are back into position. There is a strategy here, too, if you get here with 0 magic, which was the old route. So, no worries on that. Get on down and finish it out that way. So, again, quite a bit different from this, which is the fast strat. Buffer right away, jump, and just go to town. You do want to be holding jump. Or, no, I missed a comment. You just need another comment there. So, yeah, start with a buffer. Jump. Keep commenting. Little correction. And then as you fall through that, do another comment. Okay. If you don't have any magic when you start, things get a little more specific. When you get in, just keep moving forward. And rather than trying to go up immediately, you see the end of this kind of wind platform. Go out to that. And then turn back and jump. And the reason for doing that is that it spawns these bats. And you want to spawn them slightly earlier so that they're in a good pattern for you by the time you get up there. So let me demonstrate if you just happen to go all the way up right away. You see that one bat's kind of getting in your way. You're not able to just get through very well. If you spawn him just slightly earlier, so you go all the way out to the edge like this, jump back. Nice clear opportunity for you. And then you can continue as normal. It's just a lot harder when you start with without any of that extra magic. Like, you pick up some. So there you'd have 4. Now you'd have 4 again. And then you finish it out. 4. Comet once. Comet twice. No, okay. That's not quite right. You can only afford to do 2 comets in this section. So collect that. Go on over. Go under there. And then use your second comet here. So that's how that would go. I'm going to do one more time with the fast strat, and then we're just going to move on to the next room, which has its own set of problematic bits. There we go. So, second room. The very first little tricky bit of movement is kind of the fact that these wind currents, so long as you're jumping into them, they move you up much faster. So, like you can see here, I cannot reach this upper wind current by just straight jumping from here. But if you jump in this at an angle, you get just enough push that it grabs you. So that's going to take a little bit of practice just to basically get that timing right. You run forward, you put yourself partially into the wind current, and use that to boost up to the next area. And then you start your comets all over again. There's one right there. You fall down. So long as you started at the right position, you'll fall down and grab that next magic batch. Do 2 more comets. and then let yourself fall into the ending. So this room isn't as bad. Just make sure that your timing is pretty well set. I use a couple different visual cues for like when is the optimal time to start doing a comet. The main one to consider is this very first one. So right about here. So right before you get into that second current that's pushing you that way, launch another one. It'll kill that guy and put you in perfect position to fall and grab that next one. And then after that, you just jump into this wind current and do 2 comets right away. This guy, you do need to jump. So when you're in the middle of this current right here, you got to jump up and make sure that you're hitting attack right away. Otherwise, this guy will knock you back and do some damage, and it's just not any fun. And then otherwise, you just let the currents carry you to the end. So, one more time, just at full speed. And now we're at the boss. And this is among the shortest bosses, but it depends on how risky you want to go with the strategy. So we've got 2 magic right now. You can go through, if you can get here with 4 magic, basically just skip one of the earlier comets. That can still be to your advantage, and you can do some other quick kills on him. I'm not going to go over those right now because I don't even have the magic to demonstrate. But the very first thing you want to do, as soon as the screen loads and you gain control, you want to jump up and attack. You're going to trade hits, but that is critical to making sure that he's on the right timing and that the RNG is set up correctly, which, by the way, I'm going to make go away for the time being because I don't need to reference it anymore. Okay. So that initial hit does 2 damage. He has 22 HP. Did something to slow you down. What did I do? Speed 100%. Thank you. You get the hit in right away, and then you kind of get over here. I don't really have a good visual indicator of where you should be. Just kind of not all the way to the right, but still plenty of room and margin between the exact center of your current wind current. And from here, you're waiting. You need to swap over. So it's 2 to the right, 2R, to get to the Starfire here. And you need the Starfire and this particular position just so that you can launch a pretty precise attack. So after you get hit, set that up. As soon as they start appearing again, you launch it out. And that's the perfect fight. That's exactly what you want. If you're timing it right, he will always move in the same way. And that has to do with the RNG and some of the other things. But your positioning needs to be pretty on point. So I'll just demonstrate one more time. Hit, swap over, wait here, jump. And there you go. So there's a lot to unpack there. Let's just take it at a slower pace. So there's 1 hit here. Now he's down to 20 HP. Launch. And so long as you time this right, you're going to see this one hit him, which is going to do 4 damage. So that hit him, 4 damage. This boss, for whatever reason, he has the shortest invulnerability cycle of anything else in the game. So he's only going to recoil for a very brief amount of time, to the point that this little explosion is still there and will hit him again. So that's going to happen. He's going to get hit by that again. And then you see this other one that hit his clone. So this one right here, it took out that clone, and the explosion's here. When this explosion is done, this explosion's still going to be here, and it's going to hit him again. And if I had actually held jump through that, it's a little more difficult with frame by frame to remember what the heck you're doing. So you see this, that explosion comes up there. I'm holding jump throughout this entire thing so that I still have height. and then I'm going to launch an attack so that he runs into it right away. So there, we just did 12 plus 2 damage on top of his already missing 2. So we're at 16 damage. We have 6 more HP to go. You use that opportunity to kind of go under. The wind current will put you back up. As soon as you're here again, jump, swing, and basically just keep mashing on the button because he will continue to run into it. And that last time is all you need to finish it out. So that's how you deal with this boss. It takes a while. To do it this way, it does take a lot of practice. You start the Starfire in that position right after you see the clones start to appear, and everything kind of just works. The alternatives that require a little less time to put into it, you could do this even with no magic if you wanted. Start over here. And this is somewhat challenging sometimes. You can, with perfectly timed punches, you can get him just completely locked. Right here. He's always going to be that one in the lower left corner, and you can basically just continually punch him, and because of how his iframes work out, yeah, it's just if you happen to be in the wrong spot, you might have to deal with some of the clone attacks, or he can possibly get away if there's gaps in your attack. So this is not ideal, but this is certainly a way to try and take care of him. You can also just punch up here, but again, you're bound to get hit by one of the clones at some point unless you set up something different. If you still have the magic, then you can use a Starfire over in that corner and still basically gain a lot of the benefits. But it's still kind of a damage race to be able to take him out that soon. Oh, that was way too early. But because these strats are inconsistent, they did not stick around, and they're also just slower than what I showed you before. So, yeah, the answer is if you miss something, then do it the best you can. But I'm giving you plenty of opportunities just to kind of show how he's manipulated and how he starts off, so that you can, if you need to, form your own strategy. In any case, we get lightning. Since we cleared Fortress Shirol, we're good to go into the caverns, which is another exciting... Oh, gosh. It's another exciting opportunity. There's a lot of technical things that go on, and you can opt to try them or not. However, there's still a few items that you definitely need to get, or else you're just going to have a really bad day. So, Caverns of Shirol. Immediately start off, you're going to have your new lightning attack set up. So again, just swap to the Comet. Ride this thing down, and then right before it gets to that last elbow, fall off in front of it, and it'll kind of push you a little bit more forward. But our whole point here is that we want to land on this platform. And as we land on the platform, we're going to immediately jump and comet. And by that, I mean we're going to jump. So you have to leave the ground a little bit and comet. So if you wait too long on that, you're going to hit those spikes. And it's just going to cancel out, and it's not going to be any good. So long as you did that right, though, you're going to still hold jump through this entire sequence. 1 comet, 2 comets. And then if you're holding jump, you're going to be able to continue out that jump over here, grab the wall, and then do another couple comets. So this is fairly tightly timed. And unfortunately, it's one of those few things that if you miss it, there's not really any recovery. So practice. If If you do happen to get hit, you do have to basically just take the slow way, which is a little one of these trams all the way over. So like here, if you go through, you end up hitting the spikes, or you just are out of position. You're just going to get knocked back. And I'll demonstrate that for now. You don't really have any more resources, unfortunately, to try to do anything differently. So you would have gotten knocked back here. You have to take this tram all the way over. And unfortunately, you can't even reach up there anymore. So you have to still take this one low. And you can't reach that one either. So basically, you're still out a comet. So you can use one comet through there. We never really devised strats because that's already, like, if you miss that setup, you've already lost the run. But there. So the spikes would take you out of it. You can, if you wanted to, just start over here. Find some other place to comet so that it just gets you into position. And then continue this way. You've still got 4 magic heading into the next room. And you continue from there. But again, hope that doesn't happen. It's a bad day. And instead, just hope to keep this buffered comet dash going. 1, 2, 2. More comets, more beta. For this segment, like, you're still kind of moving at optimal speed so long as you're on this platform, but obviously that's not going to be true when it ends. So be prepared to get off. And to stop your momentum when you get to this thing, hold down. So you'll crouch, take out that guy however you want. And the whole purpose of crouching there is that there's kind of a little race condition that happens between you and the lava monster, where he's in the perfect place that you want to be, but not at the right time. So starting from here, move forward, fall, stop. And then you want to clear that jump so you just land on the platform. And the point of stopping, so you see how I'm kind of in the back part of this, that means that the lava monster is going to spawn slightly later. Whereas if I were to kind of move forward, he's right there, and I don't really have a good opportunity to get over him because I'm not close enough to the wall yet. So this is all about setting up for just that perfect spacing. And then you can continue on as if nothing happened. Okay, this room. I'm just going to do this once real quick to show, well, if I can get a zip off, how it's supposed to look, and then we'll go into the details. Okay, then there's another little secret area right here that you go into for the next room. So, to break it down again, jump straight up, grab this edge, get yourself stuck in the corner for a zip. If you mess up, you are likely to get hit by that little chainsaw gnaw guy. But after that, you set up another buffered jump comet. So it's right here, hold the jump, and then damage boost on those spikes. If you're really snazzy, this is the other opportunity where you can do a ground zip that really saves a lot of time. You can try it because losing the magic doesn't hurt you too much. So that'd be crouch, punch, jump, 1 frame later, and then zip, and whee, takes you straight through. But again, only if you're feeling really snazzy. Otherwise, probably just go through, crawl. It takes an extra 4 seconds to crawl, but it's not too bad. So, there you go. One more time for funsies. Get yourself stuck, zip up, jump down, and try a ground zip. Didn't get it. That's fine, moving on. Okay. This room is either the most fun or the worst thing. I'll show you the current strategy first. So it kind of takes all of the different things that I've taught you earlier on, as far as grabbing on to the sides of the walls, getting yourself stuck with your foot in the ground, and then being able to use that to launch you left. It just has the extra caveat of you can't see yourself. So, assuming you're starting this fresh, you take 1 damage from the lava, watch your HP, or listen, and then as soon as you take the second damage, then you know that you're basically at the bottom level, so you can get yourself stuck now. And when you get stuck facing the left with your foot in the ground, anytime you punch, it just launches you left. And there's some other mechanics going on with the lava there where they can't hit you in certain conditions, and being underneath them is one of those conditions. So yeah, currently perfectly safe. And there's some other things that you want to do to set it all up, but that's the optimal way to get through. It's tricky, and you should be confident to make sure that you can get yourself stuck. You do 2 punches, 1 crescent, and then another punch, jump at the end of this, and you'll reattach to the wall, and you can climb up and get out without the lava hurting you for some reason. I don't know why that it is, but I'm happy that it works that way. But this is rough. If you don't want to try this, certainly that is a perfectly fine decision. There are some other opportunities to try and get through. You don't need to wait that long either. It's obviously something you can just do punch, punch, crescent, punch, and then go. You want to wait at some of these points, or else the lava monsters will fire out a fireball at kind of the wrong time, but that's in general what you want to do to handle it. The old way to do this involves, that's right, we get another manipulation. This one isn't used anymore because we don't need the magic in the scenario, but it's kind of tricky to set up because you need to take action as soon as you gain control of the character in the room. So I'm just going to go over here. You need to jump, bonk your head on just this little tile right here. Launch a crescent, and then the crescent should hit this guy right as you're going through. So maybe I need to punch too. Yeah, it's a tricky one. Do I need to punch? Yeah, I might need to punch in there. In any case, hope that you don't have to rely on this one. If you want, definitely check out the older runs where this is kind of the strategy. But it's been literally years since I've used it, so forgive my inability to pull it off right now. But it looks something like that. I've got plenty of old videos on YouTube and otherwise that will use that strategy, especially from the 2015, 2016 era. And what you'd do is you'd get a comet from here, and then you'd immediately use 1, use 2, and then use 1 more, and you'd land right on this guy, and then you can continue on. But you'd have 2. Yeah, there it goes. So there is a punch in between. Oh, they're very kind today. You take that through, and then from here, you launch 2 comets and let it finish out. So that's the old strat. Yep. Swap to comet. It looks something like that. You just do 2 comets across the rest of that plane. But obviously, the more fun thing, if you can pull it off, is just getting stuck in here. Punch, punch, crescent, punch, jump. There you go. We're not done with manips, though. We've got one more here. So this one, we're going to do basically the same thing I did for the old strat in that room. You're going to jump, bonk your head, punch once, take that damage, get around this platform, and then on your way down, just throw out a kick, and you should hit this guy just right that he drops that big magic. And there you go. The next room is the boss room, so getting that extra magic is kind of critical. You can position yourself a little bit better when you land here. But you should be able to grab that jump right on the first one. If you miss it, no big deal. You can actually still grab it by just kind of jumping from this edge and collecting it. So don't be too afraid of that. But yeah, so just one more time for this room. As soon as you enter, hold right, jump, punch, get hit, go around. I didn't hit him from the top there, so that didn't work. You do need to keep this turn fairly tight. There you go. And then you head on into boss. So now is Dragafent, everybody's favorite. And he is a pain in the butt. There's no good way to set up the manipulation for him without practice. So you do need to get through and just really work it out so that your position is close enough without getting killed. You can kind of see his whole body hitbox as it is right now. Just avoid getting too close to those wings and you should be okay. But the issue is that all of his patterns are based on where you are relative to where he is. So they're all distance based. If I wait right here, he's going to basically rush forward in kind of a bum rush fashion. Like so. That's his kind of long range attack. If you're in the middle, like right here, he's going to jump. And if you're super close, he's going to fire these apples. And firing the apples is what you want to happen pretty much every time, because he doesn't move anywhere, and he has some iframes from every 3 hits that you give to him. So the ways to get through this are to do punch, punch, crescent. And you want to get a good timing on that so he doesn't escape. Punch, punch, crescent. And that's going to be every damage cycle on this guy. So the way to keep up the apples is to just kind of do this weaving, and hopefully you can set it up so that you never take damage here. But it is always kind of a fairly close call. And then after the last one, that's the KO, you try to move towards the center of the screen and jump. You let him do 2 high jumps at first, so you kind of move away on purpose, just to get him backed up into this corner, which ultimately helps you in the end. There are ways to keep up the pattern of apples all the way through the fight, but they're not any faster. In fact, it's slower because of where that particular strategy leaves you in the room calculation at the end. So getting him stuck in that corner is by far the easiest thing you can do, and then it also gets you to set up your rhythm of, jump, get him to launch the apples, pull back, jump back over, and then punch, punch, and so on.
So sorry if I missed it, but why do you jump at him in between cycles like that? Is that just to guarantee the apples?
It doesn't guarantee... Well, your position guarantees the apples. You jump because that's the best way to make sure that you're within the right horizontal distance, while also maintaining full ability to pull back. So if I were to just basically walk up, I would need to reverse my momentum, which all that ground-based momentum from before means it's not going to really work out too well, and you're not going to be able to escape the apples. So jumping is kind of the key there, just because you can immediately turn around with full velocity.
Okay. Just was curious.
And yeah, it's something that comes with the practice on this too. You're not going to be able to pull off that pattern right away. It took me a long time to work that out and just be able to get it out consistently. But really, anytime that you can set up a punch-punch crescent, even if you're not manipulating the apples, is beneficial. So if you wanted to, you could just stay away and get him to jump at you the whole time. which still works up until, I believe, like the 5th or 6th cycle where he lands on one of these platforms. So if you don't trust yourself to do that kind of precise positioning, this still works just as well, and you give up only a small amount of time for it. So there you go. That's your alternative strategy. And believe it or not, this is not the center of the room. It's going to take me a really long time to get into the position because this is actually 2 areas of 256 by 256 put together. So there's that. And before we get into the final couple stages, I think probably this is another good time for a break. There's about probably 30 minutes left of tutorial, but we'll just leave it here. There's going to be some fairly dense parts in the next couple stages, so just another quick break for a few minutes, and then we'll finish it out.
All right, sounds good. Just as a quick reminder, this is the Community Spotlight. It's every week here on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. Currently, every other week is dedicated to these tutorials until we're all the way through speed seasons. I've seen a lot of people say they've been enjoying it, so I'm glad to see that. But normally what we do is we showcase speedruns and categories of speedruns that don't get as much exposure. So if you think you know a game that you think deserves the spotlight, you can type !spotlight in chat, and there's a form you can fill out. Let us know games that you would like to see here on this show in the future. But we're going to take a quick break. Like Omni said, we're going to be back in just a few minutes. Take the opportunity to get up, stretch, get some water, take care of yourselves. We'll be back with the rest of this tutorial here in just a few minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Community Spotlight. We just took another break just because we had kind of a dense couple of stages there. Good opportunity to give everybody some time to relax, digest all that information before we move on. Just as a quick reminder, this is the GDQ Hotfix, a series of on-running showcases of speedruns and other speedrunning related content here on the Games Done Quick channel between our main events. If you'd like to support what we do, you can drop by twitch.tv/GDQ, and if you have an Amazon Prime account, you have your monthly free sub, or otherwise, if you feel like supporting us, we really do appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel, as Hotfix is funded in part thanks to your subscriptions and bits. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for Time Capsule. They're going to have Super Mario Galaxy. And if you want to know anything about upcoming Summer Games Done Quick 2021 online, you can visit our website, gamesdonequick.com. But I think with that, OmniGamer, why don't you take it away for the last stretch here?
All right. Yeah, and it is definitely the last stretch. There's only 3 more stages, one of which lasts less than 15 seconds. So, but the other 2 are kind of a doozy. So we just beat the Dragophant, and that means we got a new power, and we're also full up on health and magic again. One of the gatekeepers of this run, you see this hut right here, you had to beat all of the other bosses in this stretch before you can get past this hut. Luckily, though, we don't actually have to go to the hut. We can just immediately pass it now. So you skip right over it. If you do go talk to it, you get another health point and have to wait for Old Man to go through some story. But we don't need that. So instead, we're heading right over to the Dragon Hill Forest. This is kind of meant to be a puzzle stage. And this is also one of the few times that just hitting left doesn't immediately put you, hitting L doesn't immediately put you to the comet there. So right away, you're actually going to hit R 3 times. 1, 2, 3, get to comet, comet twice. And then there's a hidden doorway right inside that tree, and you can buffer 1 more comet, and that's it, stage over. Without knowing that that hidden tree is there, it is a lot more annoying to kind of traverse this stage. But head through, set up the comets, and then buffer 1 more, and easy stage. So don't have to worry about it too much, and you can end it just fine with having that slight deficit in magic, because it's not going to matter in the next stage. Easy enough. So that's just kind of like the small breathing room between the 2 most difficult stages in the game. Now we're on to the Great Tower, and this is kind of meant to be the culmination of all of the gimmicks and then some that you've encountered throughout the game so far, and also makes it one of the more difficult setups for how everything's going to work out. So First things first, buffer a comet. So right away, the stage is loading. You just hold X, and you'll immediately start into a comet. You also want to be holding right, so you grab the wall there. You get to the end of this platform. Before you fall off, do another comet, still holding forward. And this is kind of where you have a divergence point. You can either take the current optimal route, which has a lot of room, it has plenty of possible errors. I'll demonstrate that first. So you'd go through, you take damage from that Yeti, but you damage boost in the other direction. And you use some of your iframes to help set up down here, where you take damage against the side and you head on up. But if you are too late on that whole sequence, so for example, how quickly you get to that corner doesn't matter. If you're relying on your iframes from damage to get through, it's problematic because they will run out when you're in a bad position with the samurai if you need to do more than 2 attempts. So right there, I was able to do it just fine because I was still technically in my iframes by the time I passed the samurai. These samurai dudes do 4 damage, which is the most of pretty much anything in the game. Getting hit by them anytime is bad, is hugely bad. Will probably just straight up kill you. You only have the 6 health at this point anyways. So you don't have wiggle room to do it that way. So that's the risky current best known strategy. If you want to do the slightly older but way more safe strategy, you can head over here and instead basically take that guy out, and what you want to do is do Warrior Force, and then you do a normal setup. Warrior Force makes you completely invulnerable, so you have a lot more time to kind of work out getting that zip set up, just at the expense of using your extra magic. Warrior Force is what we just got from Dragafant, and it's one of those... Oops. It's trickier to deal with. You do double damage during it, and you're invulnerable when you do have it, but it doesn't last very long, and it still takes the 2 magic, and as well as the time to summon it, so it's not a perfect option. And you'd want to just set up for that, get in the wall, zip up, and then you can mess it up way more times when you're in Warrior Force just because you have much longer invulnerability period. However, that means that you'll have less magic for one of these later rooms, and you have to deal with that a little bit better. So here's the fastest route one more time. There we go. Yeah, I messed it up once, but got it on the second time, so I still had the iframes to last out, and I didn't get hit by the samurai. That's tricky room number 1. So decide your kind of optimal way to get through that, however you'd like. Just using the Warrior Force is probably the safest bet to get through. So, but you do eat up some magic to be able to do that. Oops.
So if somebody was trying this during the race and they didn't go for the Warrior Force, and they missed it twice, would you wait for another damage boost on the spikes to give you more iframes before you try again?
You could, but it's not simply a matter of It's a tricky set of opportunities here. So not only do you have to get this set up right, you can take damage while you're in there, but I believe you're actually invulnerable until you move against the spikes. So it wouldn't be ideal to try and set up another set of iframes just from damage.
Okay.
Warrior Force would be far more safe. So let's say you lasted this out. You do take damage again. So yeah, if you wait it out, then that'll work, and you can try to get that positioning to go again. So that's your option. If you miss it twice and then just wait, you'll take some more damage. You want to still minimize the damage that you take because there's some damage boosts that we need to do later on. But I'm going to go through assuming basically optimal strats right now. Yeah, this was the old strat to use Warrior Force somewhere here, and I'm having difficulty remembering exactly where you trigger it, but my guess is that you kill those enemies, and then right as you're jumping over the spikes, you use the Warrior Force and get in a position and do all the rest of that.
Yeah, makes sense.
That damage boost. Get stuck. Yep. So I ate it there because I got greedy. There you go. All right, now the Crusher. This is... You get to see a fair number of new mechanics here that are... Well, I'll reveal them one by one. So this Crusher is definitely way more treacherous than any of the last ones. The very first thing you need to do is get into the safe spot. Right here. So this would keep you safe. However, there's a quirk with just how the Crushers operate, and if you time it right, you can climb right up into them like that. You can only do this in a couple places, because if you're not out of the Crusher by the time that it starts raising again or even going down, you will die. So the timing for this is kind of... It's tricky to describe, but what I use is, you can see this kind of mark on the bricks in the background. When you pass that, heading in, jump straight up, bonk your head, and then start moving forward, you're automatically going to grasp the wall at the correct time, and it'll work just perfectly so that you're inside the wall during the time when you're invulnerable. And so long as you hold forward and get to this area, you're safe, because you'll get there right before the wall starts to raise again. And this is rather important because it lets you get through an entire cycle sooner. Kill this guy. Okay, new mechanic number 2. So we've talked a fair bit about kind of buffering your jumps with comets in the past, and how all that works out. That also goes with just your general fall speed. So it continues a jump even from the fact that you're falling and you've already completed your jump. So if you were to jump right here and start a comet, you'd automatically start falling at the end of the comet if you had like enough room to spare. However, if you grab onto the wall, all of that's still stored. So as long as you launch a comet right now, watch how quickly you fall. So you're basically at max velocity downward already, whereas if you tried it this way, like you see how you just continue as if it were a normal jump or anything like that. So that's a key difference here. You want to grab the wall as you're falling, and you'll have a lot of negative vertical velocity. You'll be able to grab that energy, the magic potion, get up and around and get through this before the cycle ends. And this is kind of the only opportunity to use this mechanic, is setting up exactly for this. And that is very dangerous. If you are kind of on the edge, don't be afraid to just grab the magic and wait it out. Eventually you do need to get over here, but now's the kind of the next part of this. I have a particular setup that I like to do. You can probably come up with your own, but this is what works out for me for the timing. You want to get hit by that guy just as you're still crawling and transitioning into standing from the Crusher. And that basically allows you to get through this entire sequence just in the nick of time before you would otherwise get crushed. So just all in one motion again. So from here, take damage on this, jump up here, and just hold forward. You're automatically going to be crouching when that slime hits you, so long as you kind of followed that timing from before, and then it'll work perfectly as you're going through the next place. The alternative strategy, this is what we used to do in the olden days. Get up here and you fire off a comet, and that gets you all the way over there. But it uses a comet for basically very little benefit, because you still wind up still exiting on the same cycle. So if you're not sure of yourself, you can still do that. and it just uses up a comet here rather than in the next screen. So one more time, it's just you climb up on the edge and then use comet right away, and that clears out the slime for you too. Versus this, which is the current strat. Take the damage there, hold up, you're crouching, take the hit, and you don't, since you're crouching when you're hit, you don't actually get any recoil because the game can't move you anywhere. So that's the best way to do it, and you preserve all of your magic. So long as you've done everything else so far correctly, you're not going to be able to... So, for example, if you did Warrior Force in the first screen, you're not going to be able to do one of these comets that's coming up. But this is the bowling ball room. And the bowling ball room is, well, kind of uneventful if you have comet. Right after that one, hold it there. One more. There you go. So the spacing for that is right after this first bowling ball, jump and hold the jump so that it buffers. And then when you get roughly to the middle of this bowling ball, fire another comet, and you should just miss those spikes. If you did it exactly at the right position, you can just land straight on the ledge right away instead of having to climb up. But climbing up is still not a bad option. If you used up magic in either of the two rooms and you don't have... You need to leave this room with at least 4. So if you have more than 4, then feel free to use probably this one, I would say, is faster. And then you can just go around and use that. If you have none, then just proceed as normal. These bowling balls cause a lot of lag while they're on screen, so they're not the best. Oops. But that's how you'd get through if you had 4 and you needed to keep 4 if you used Warrior Force and an extra comet in the Crusher. Okay, so we're getting into the spiral elevator, for lack of any better term. There's one manipulation right at the start. It's a very easy manipulation just because everything's triggered by your motion setting foot onto the elevator. So if you, after you gain control, before you actually get to the elevator, you just need to punch, wait for yourself to move again. This is important because you can cancel a punch with another punch and you don't want to mess up the frames. You just do the 2 punches, sit right here, and then launch a comet right before that guy lands on you. So in full speed, 1, 1, comet. And that one's pretty free. To avoid these guys, you just jump right over them. They kind of gave you a hint with this just by the placement of the goodies, but these samurai, again, are real mean. Punch, punch. Okay, that's that. This room, there's not too much to say. Just jump over a little bit and then move more right. I do it this way. You can have other ideas, but the whole point is just landing on this doorway while holding up. And that's just a matter of a little bit of practice. It's not too bad at all. What is too bad is this room. There is a manipulation in this room. Unfortunately, I don't remember enough of the timing and positioning for it. The crescent, no. In the spiral elevator, you would not be able to use the crescent because they would basically land on you before they would get killed by the crescent. And, well, badness. Don't want that to happen. But here we go with a water room, our favorite. And not only that, they have crisscrossing currents all the way through. And to set this up, you want to be using the Starfire. I'll just run it at full speed. Climb that at the start to get just a little bit more of an edge on it. And then you want to be offsetting your position with those. And then firing a crescent or a Starfire at that point since you're killing these snakes, they have so many orbs in them that all give drops. So there's a lot of leeway in when you kill them that actually would get you a big magic. However, your position is not guaranteed here. So you can do this 10 times, and pretty much every time you will wind up in a slightly different position at that point. So there's a fair bit of wiggle room in how you actually execute this. Like that time, I did get one, but I wouldn't say that that's the timing to focus on. So unfortunately, I don't have too much to offer here as far as like a good visual cue on how to set this up. I know that what I used to use is you just kind of sit over here, and hopefully you're keen on your directions enough so that the currents don't move you into the path of these squids. And then right here, you can see the cat panel in the background. You've got this squid heading off to the left. There's some positioning here that you can align yourself up with, and hopefully just this vertical position should be enough such that that snake is going to die at the right time. This squid might also die at the right time, but all of those are possibilities. I'm just not certain anymore that a lot of them will work. So there we got it again. So you finish out this room without getting hit. Without getting hit, I says.
You had to say something.
Yeah. Yeah, so I didn't get it there. And then here you have a couple options in that prior room as well. This way assumes that you're going to use this Starfire to try and take that out and get an extra magic drop for free, which you might, but you also might not, in which case you need to get through this room with using just a single comet. These dragon guys have 4 health, so you need to hit them twice in the air. Where you use your comet is kind of up to you. Go through this one more time. Get a state at the other opportunity. There we go. Fresh magic. Okay. So, if you get the magic, you need to swap back to Comet before you enter this door. I'm just going to put it here for safety. And from here, you can boost just 3 comets right away, and there you go. So you can buffer right from entering this door, so long as you did get that magic pickup from earlier. And because of how these platforms work, they're kind enough to kind of move you up to keep you out of harm's way, even if you're like a little late on the timing or anything like that. So here's what you would do if you went for the manip and didn't get the magic drop. So assuming that you only have 4 magic at this point, go through, kill this guy with 2 kicks, jump over him. Go 1 platform further, I guess. And then you do a comet here and finish it out that way. Your whole goal is to get to that last room with just 2 magic remaining. If you didn't use a magic at all in that one, then you can use 2 comets, and it still gets you in pretty decent shape, just going through there. But so again, if you're doing it optimally, just 1, 2, 3, jump to finish it out. This is our last room. Climb up with our handy dandy zips. Nothing too special there. And into the boss. This one you want to be on Warrior Force, so immediately get up to this platform. As you see the dragon spawning, you do want to jump down and hit the orb kind of as low as to the platform as you can, and then get on this platform, crouch. When you get hit, you just start mashing on Warrior Force. And what this will do it'll put you right in line to hit the dragon right as you spawn. Oh, so that was a six, not 10 cycle. So that was one shy of optimal. And this is all just because you want to have a very precise timing on when Warrior Force connects with the dragon, because if you wait too much, you're going to end up losing out on the damage bonus from Warrior Force, and it'll take you an extra cycle, which is only like 90 frames or something like that. It's not bad if you miss it. It's just, it's a reasonably easy setup to go for, so why not just push for it. One more time. Crouch. Kick, kick, kick. And so long as you basically have a hitbox available for the dragon the next time it becomes available to be hit, it's not going to move. So perfectly easy so long as you have that rhythm set up where you always have another kick hitbox ready to go whenever he's vulnerable again. Oh, and with that, that's all the main stages. So we're on to the last one. Something that's just a little weird with these huts. To go in any of the huts, you actually need to press a button. All the rest of the stages, so long as you navigate to it, it'll enter it automatically without you needing to do anything. These huts are the only exception, so... Yep, we've got another speech from Old Man. Something, something, calling me a whelp, yada yada. And then another collect them up just to restore some more lives. And again, this is just kind of a breather. You had some really hard stages just now, so get a little bit of time to relax. But something important to keep in mind, Old Man boss is coming right up. So don't get too complacent. Yeah, right about there is good. Just let the mine hit you in a moment. Okay. This is it. This is the tough one. There. All better. Don't mash. Whenever you get there, just don't mash. Because it'll lead to all sorts of bad things. There. And that's all you needed to do to get locked into like an extra 10 or 12 seconds of dialogue. So be careful. And that's the thing too. If you keep mashing to go through his stuff, he'll just keep repeating it. So you need to be aware of when it ends so that you can get to finally resume. But just don't mess up and you don't have to worry about it. One line, done. Alright. Raglan Citadel, and we've got our last power, the Phoenix. And the Phoenix means business in every capacity. So where you use it in this area, you can go through this entire portion of the stage without using it. I figure why not? They give you plenty of magic refills throughout, so just to give you a little bit more safety, it's simple enough to just toss out a Phoenix, especially if you feel like, oh no, I'm in danger. You can toss out an emergency Phoenix and go from there. Something that I didn't really mention much before is how the actual physics of flight works. You need to hold the B button to basically gain some upward momentum. And that's true in both those auto-scrollers that have the flight areas to them, and the Phoenix as well. So you kind of need to be a little tricky about when you hold the button just to be able to go up and down and make sure you get your positioning right. It takes a little bit of practice, but there's nothing too exciting or problematic about it. So just one more time to reinforce just how to get through this area. Really, you can kind of wing it as you go. Something to note about these, they don't fall unless you're on top of them. So you can grab onto the side of them and just hang out, literally, and everything's fine. Obviously, killing them earlier will reduce lag where possible, but this whole stage doesn't really lag too much anyways. I use another Phoenix here because why not? You don't have to. It doesn't give you any benefit, and you get that free magic right there. So it's kind of whatever you want. But on the rest of the way up, hang out on the sides, build up, switch over to Comet, which is 2 to the right, and head over to the door. Get back to Bird. It doesn't really matter when you use this. You have a really long opportunity to do this so that you have all the hits necessary to take out the lamp. The Phoenix does 8 damage, and the lamp has 32 HP, so since its iframes are short enough, you can just kind of go to town. There's really not much more to say there. Is just whenever you see the smoke start to rise, by that point you're already safe, so just use that as a cue on when to start the Phoenix. In this room, you can navigate back to Comet quickly because our good old friend Mode 7 boss is back, and you can't damage him any faster. So you don't need to preserve the magic in that hallway. And likewise with the hallway after this, so long as you time and space it right. But there's no differences here, just the same old setup. Unfortunately, this version of the boss has a much worse theme. You can't do punch jams to it as easily. That's probably my main my main complaint on this fight. So head back to the middle of that platform. Another punch and a kick. 2 and 3. There it goes. You don't need to be in the center of the screen for these guys since they don't move you afterwards. I still do it out of habit. But here's another opportunity for just another couple of comets, so jump right away. And if you time it right, you'll get both the last refill as well as be low enough so that you can just enter the doorway right away. And then wall face is next. So we're already on Comet, set it up. If you want to be a little classy, you can save possibly a handful of frames by hitting with Starfire on any of these rotations, which, if you time it right, is good, but more likely you will not time it right. So I recommend only trying it for the second one if you have the opportunity, and then just go back to Comet for the rest. And now we're out of magic, so no more comets through the hallways. Just pick up these magics normally. As you're going through as well, you want to go back to Phoenix, because next up is the clams. I'm just going to go back real quick to... We're going to do wall face one more time. So this is how you do it. You'd have like an instant hit as soon as they spawn on all 3, which the... Oops. The Comet can't do as easily. And then finish it out. So, in the next hallway, press L twice, you'll get back to Phoenix. And then there's a couple different ways to approach the clams again. I like to buffer a Phoenix as soon as I go in, and the old way, you would go up through here, and then take these guys out like that. The new way involves the opposite. You go underneath and kind of do this rotation, which has some slight advantages to it, but I believe that the lower way that I just showed is both easier and less likely to have an error than the other way. Like, it doesn't matter too much if you bonk one of those sides, so long as you're keeping up on the rest of the pattern. And you just Phoenix once, Phoenix again right after, and you'll be able to take them out in no time. So hopefully easy peasy. The last one, again, we're going to make use of the fact that his AI is entirely determined by where you are relative to him. And just at the start here, we're not going to move. Wait for just your regular standing animation. You see you do these like heaves. Wait for the first one of those to go, and then launch your Phoenix. take the hit, move back, take that hit, move forward. There you go. And then you want to hang out by his head after that. And that should always work. So long as you're keeping position with his head, and this is a critical part, you need to kind of stay on top of him at every opportunity. This timing works out pretty well. And it also makes sure that the Phoenix runs out just after you've hit him, so that you can't immediately be hit if you're like slightly out of position, because that could mess things up as well. So just one more time. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3.
How nice is it to have Phoenix to just completely shrek these bosses on the refights?
The ones that don't have like a fixed amount of HP, yeah. You do need to use it on our new boss of the bunch, Ashura. We get to have our own revenge against him. And it is pretty critical that you don't mess this up. Because you both need your HP full, as well as full magic to take him down optimally. That shield, so you can't do anything to him while he has the shield. It's just cannot be done. And the only way to break the shield is with Phoenix. So that means that you want to start Phoenix as soon as you can. A different save right after all this dialogue. Boom. So you get 3 hits, and then you're going to untransform. So you do need to be kind of like away from his body to make that happen. There's another option too. I just reflexively always go kind of like for his upper torso. What that's going to make him do, though, is he's going to fly up. And there's some cases where it's not to your advantage when he's flying around, because you can get stuck on the platforms, but he can't. So instead, you can just run up to him and use Phoenix on the ground. And if you're on his lower torso, that was curious. You do need to kind of like hit his upper body still with the Phoenix to make it count. But yeah, I like to go to the upper route anyways. This is just, I know that Lahulk, one of the other runners, prefers to do this lower. And then you can chase him around with the final Phoenix. Yep. And do all that. But like I said, I'm more practiced with going up high. Like, he'll either move forward or he'll stop and launch fireballs, and either one of them, so long as you're chasing him down, shouldn't really matter. Just as long as you clear like his space by the time your Phoenix untransforms. Like, it's all pretty straightforward. Two and 3. Okay. So that's Ashura, final boss, right? Not quite. Just a little bit more dialogue, and then we'll get into the final kind of unique fight of this game, and another one that's going to take a lot of practice to be able to do well. The strategies that we have, they work when you don't mess up, but not messing up is kind of the name of the game for the whole run.
I do appreciate that the old man gets one more chance to call us fools before the game ends.
Yeah, it's a requirement at this point. Okay, so now Raglan. Oh, it's going to start off, and immediately you're going to jump up to the wall, start climbing up it a little bit, and then jump off just within range to hit him with a kick. It's critical that you get this magic and swap over to the healing magic, which we've never used before, and then just proceed to pound him in the face. And you want to be making sure that you're getting hit by his face or something else that's not that laser beam, at every possible opportunity, because most of those things do 1 damage. And the laser beam happens to do 2. Both the laser as well as the trailing explosions on the ground. So use that to kind of keep up your rhythm. You want to try to prevent him from moving up as much as possible. And then if you do it right and use your magic to dodge above the laser, you will just barely be able to kill him in a damage race. The alternative here is you can just basically KO yourself right away, in which case you spawn with 4 more magic, and you basically have a lot more leeway about like extra HP. You need to heal an extra time, but it's basically just safer at that point in case like you're not certain about dodging lasers and so on.
If you wanted to take the intentional death, you'd be wanting to get hit by the laser?
Actually, so in this fight, what does the most damage is this fist. So if you can get punched, it does 4 damage, and that's a bad day. So you'll be coming into this fight with 6 HP anyways. So getting punched is probably the most efficient way, if not just like hiding out in the lava. Yeah, so you can get hit by the lava twice and hang out in his fist, and that'll respawn you. But either way, I recommend you're going to have to do the same strategy no matter what. It's just that gives you a little bit more room for mistakes. And you can build up a rhythm with just the timing of it and everything else, but whenever you get down to that last health point, instead of taking another hit, obviously you jump up, and at the height of your jump, you want to make sure that you're using the health, which gives you just enough time to dodge this the laser beam. And you can probably see from the hitbox viewer just kind of how ridiculous the hitboxes are for the laser itself. So it has these boxes that extend out. They cover a huge amount. Like there's no way that you can kind of dodge in between them. It's also really tall, and then these explosions carry on. So like if you wanted to try and dodge this naturally, what you would do is kind of hang out here. Oh, it still hit me. So this is just a pain in the butt because you can jump over it, but you have to be darn perfect to be able to pull it off. So I really just recommend staying in his face at maximum, taking all those damage boosts. It'll pay off in the long run and just give you a happier experience here rather than trying to like jump over each and every one, because you will mess it up and you will take more damage and you're not going to be any better off for it.
So notice that you're using the combo. Is that just another situation where like you can only do 1 damage, doesn't matter what you're using to hit him?
Yeah, you're just putting some kind of hitbox in his face, and it keeps you stationary. So you don't want to get moved back on accident or get thrown off on your cycle by like if you jumped instead and did it that way. You might wind up in a different position when you came back. One of the things that I haven't shown yet is all of this. You want to hit him as soon as possible at every opportunity, because if you don't, what's going to happen is he's going to raise up. So every time you hit him, he counters with the laser. So he's going to rise up here, and then he's going to start launching his fist. And then you don't have any guarantee of your position. So it's much more precarious to try and do a damage race with him in this position, simply because you don't know when that fist is going to launch itself out and kind of ruin your ability to get the next damage boost before the laser is. Because right there, for example, it cost me 1 extra hit. So there, I have to do an au natural jump, and it still wasn't enough damage. So don't let him get to the top. That's the moral of the story. And just one more time for good luck. The damage race. when you take your healing, it can be kind of a point of preference. I like to do it right at the last damage point. You can also do it at 2, but it really depends on like these cycles aren't perfectly optimized. So some of these damage times, your iframes are going to wear off at different times in his laser cycle, and you're going to wind up where you don't have good control over like when you get the next hit, and you might be in the middle of a laser firing through you, in which case it's ambiguous what you actually get hit by. So come up with something that works for you. That works for me. Your mileage may vary, but at the end, the right answer is whichever one gets you through it. But yeah, that's it. So long as you've done everything else that I went through out in the rest of this tutorial, you've beaten the game and you've gotten a good time. There's plenty of zips and things to kind of try and optimize, and again, you can take more or less risk in a lot of these stages, whether you use magics or rely on manips or anything like that. But really, it's just find a rhythm and pattern that you're comfortable, and the game is a lot of fun no matter what. Like a lot of those guaranteed manipulations and just getting successful zips always feels good. So one way or another, you'll be able to get through. Don't worry too much if you do get caught up in a death somewhere. It's not too costly. Like even during the race, or not the race, the run that I was doing yesterday, I had 2 or 3 deaths and still ultimately only cost me like a minute and a half, something like that. So yeah, plenty you can do. Have fun with it, and yeah, hope you enjoy. Something to note though, I don't know if there were specific rules put in for the speed seasons, but there are timing differences between the US and the Japanese versions. It is a fixed time difference, so if you're playing on one, the time can be directly converted to another. I believe I have an exact frame number somewhere, but it's about 19 seconds. The Japanese version is faster, so just to convert between those two times, just plus or minus 19, depending on which direction you're going, and use that to kind of gauge your own performance and where you want to be. But for everybody competing, I'd say probably just play on the US version and keep it easy for racing, so we don't have to do some juggling at the end.
Well, due to some people owning J karts, yeah, we're gonna let them pick and choose whether or not they want to lose 19 seconds.
Okay.
And also, there's a certain person who likes to participate in these who just enjoys localization and can read Japanese, so they're probably almost certainly going to be playing on Japanese version.
All right. Well, in that case, yeah, everybody play on Japanese and make it easier.
You don't need to read the plot. It's fine.
No, the plot doesn't matter too much, and honestly, the differences come from any of the text portions, just because the text actually prints to the screen slower in Japanese, but there's fewer characters to display, so there's balancing act. And then for whatever reason, there's a couple of like freezes that happen, particularly in the end there with the old man, that for whatever reason it just takes 2 seconds longer in Japanese for no reason. So counting all that up, we do have a conversion. It is there, but for the sake of competition, probably just all play on the same version. Yeah, and that wraps up Skyblazer. So hope you all enjoyed. We'll have the VOD available, and hopefully it'll serve as a good reference when you're coming back to try and figure out the different stages. And of course, if you have any specific questions, you can ask me on my Twitter or some Discords or another. I'm in probably all the GDQ Discords and otherwise. Just find my screen name and ask me some questions. It's all good. And then there's this tutorial. I have another tutorial on my YouTube. You can check out all the current strategies as well as the old strategies and older runs. So there's plenty of things to do, plenty of resources out there, even though this is a fairly lesser known game. So yeah, good luck and have fun with it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on and giving us such a great tutorial, OmniGamer. And of course,
My
go
pleasure.
check out OmniGamer when he streams, twitch.tv/OmniGamer.
Yep.
Is there anything else you'd like to plug before we wrap things up?
I mean, there's plenty of things that I could plug. I guess the most sensible one is I wrote a book at one point about speedrunning. It has a bunch of examples, including Skyblazer examples, in addition to talking about the history and kind of philosophy evolution of speedrunning. So you can go check that out. It's called Speedrun Science, and you can just there's a quick link, speedrunscience.com. It'll take you to our friends at Fangamer, who helped to publish the book and make it all sorts of fancy with lots of graphics and otherwise. So check it out. That's a fun time. And yeah, we'll see you again later on. I'll probably be back on to do some commentary when we get to the race, and that'll be a fun time.
Yep. Thanks again. And of course, if you want any information about Speed Seasons, how that's going, up the current results, or you want to find our Discord, you can just go to speedseasons.com. You can hop in there. There's a Discord link on that webpage. And once again, the race is on May 9th, 1 p.m. Eastern. So if you'd like to participate, even if you're not going for standings or rankings or anything like that, you just want to jump in on the race, definitely go ahead and do that. There'll be information on the Discord about where to be with SRL and all that stuff when we get close to that race time. So, do you have anything else to add, Alpha, before we sign off?
Nope. Join the races. They're fun.
All right. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for Time Capsule. They're going to be having a speed run of Super Mario Galaxy. I don't know which category. I just know they're going to have Super Mario Galaxy on. That's hosted by Smooth Operative. It's a show where they go over speed runs of games themed around specific years of when they were released. So I think Super Mario Galaxy was 2007 off the top of my head. I'm not confident on that. But sometimes there'll be more than one speedrun, and it'll all be speedruns that came out in the same year. It's a fun show if you've never seen it before. Tune at 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow to check that out. Otherwise, we'll see you for other hotfix content. But we're going to take another quick break, and then we're going to raid someone. So if you'd like to see some more speedrunning content, just stick around for a few minutes, and we'll send you off to somebody who's speedrunning.